Why? Loria Rowan lies on the green grass under a clear blue sky, surrounded by flowers, a small chick, and a fluffy white rabbit as she sighs in distress. Wah! Why am I the only one who can't transform? They were a hybrid race of man and beast. In their high society, most nobles possessed animalistic features like horns or ears, which they proudly displayed in magnificent attire. Loria looks down at a tiny, fluffy white rabbit cradled gently in someone's hands. At present, their human form is mostly dominant, with just ears and tails attached. But I can't even do that. Loria covers her face in despair, sighing about how incredibly frustrating her situation is. While people gossip maliciously around her about the mutated lady of the White Fox clan, Loria stands alone with a glass in her hand thinking, I've had enough. It would be nice if I could just grow ears or even a tail. I'm fine with either. She opens her brilliant blue eyes wide with sudden determination. Let me try one more time. She closes her eyes, focusing all of her inner energy to summon her magic. This time, for sure. I feel like I can do it. Ouch, my head. This is what happens when you use magic. For some reason, my head is intensely itchy. My ears feel fluffy. Did it work? I did it. The little rabbit taps her on the back as she sits there as a small white animal, leaving her completely confused. There's no way. Squeak? Eep? No way. If I remember correctly, modern beastmen cannot completely transform into beasts. But why am I a young fox instead of an adult one? My parents and older brother will definitely recognize me, though. Now is not the time for this. I need to calm down and undo the transformation. I have to go home and investigate. She squeezes her eyes shut and tries to force herself to change back, but only high-pitched squeaks escape her mouth. Why? Why can't I change back? In that moment, a sense of dark dread washes over her. It felt like everything around her went completely dark. No way. Even the carriage I rode in is parked far away. How am I supposed to return home? What should I do? She cries, letting out a tiny, helpless squeak. As she squeaks in despair, a tall, mysterious figure approaches her through the dark woods. Suddenly, a large hand reaches down and grabs her by the scruff of her neck, startling her. A young fox. What the heck's up with this guy? A strikingly handsome man with glowing yellow eyes holds her, appearing out of nowhere like that. His piercing golden eyes stare down at her with calm curiosity. Did you lose your parents? He asks. In response, she growls and bites his hand, thinking, don't go assuming someone's parents are dead as you please, and let go of me. The man mutters, calmly tucking the little struggling fox inside his coat pocket. Let's go to my house. Hearing this, she looks up in sheer panic, wondering if she is being abducted. Release me, kidnapper, Papa, Mama, she squeaks uselessly as he walks away. And so, that is how she ended up living with her kidnapper for half a year. Half a year later, Loria stands in her human form outside a shop, looking hesitant. She enters the establishment as the small bell above the door chiming softly. Suddenly, she freezes in place, her eyes widening in complete shock. Sitting inside the shop is the very same man who took her away that night. His name is Xenox Classium. Summer, why is this man here? She thinks in a panic, covering her mouth. I heard that the arranged marriage was an abrupt decision, a voice notes as Xenox sits there with a cold, composed expression. Of all people, it had to be Xenox. Loria stands before Xenox Classium, her posture slightly tense as he sits relaxed across from her, the soft sunlight pouring through the large window behind them. Loria tries to break the tension with a nervous, polite laugh, saying, You're the gentleman I'm supposed to marry, right? I am Loria Rowan. Oh my. A close-up reveals her brilliant blue eyes filled with shock and recognition as she realizes exactly who is sitting right in front of her. She looks down at a flyer in her hands which reads, I am looking for a white fox. Name, Shiro. Feature, white fur. The inner body and the soles of the feet are pink. Body length is 18 centimeters. The tail is long and fluffy. Important, small and cute. Could be mistaken for a stuffed animal. Outside, a heavy downpour of rain drenches the dark, imposing towers of the Grand Castle. In a quiet room, a large, warm hand gently strokes the soft, fluffy white ears of the little fox. Looking down with a soft, slightly shadowed expression, the handsome man notes, You really aren't scared at all. Xenox sits comfortably on a plush sofa in his dimly lit study, gently running his hands over the small white fox curled up on his lap. The little white fox looks up with wide, bright blue eyes, thinking proudly, I'm not scared one bit. You're just gonna pet me, right? With a gentle smile crossing his face, he whispers, See? You're even smiling now." As his large, gentle hands continue to stroke her back, Shiro closes her eyes happily, thinking somehow it feels nice. But suddenly, the warm memory is interrupted as his voice calls out, "Shiro!" amidst a dramatic backdrop of crackling, bright orange flames. Staring into her eyes with an intense golden gaze, he holds her firmly and asks, "You'll stay by my side, right?" The little white fox's blue eyes widen in sheer terror as she stares back at his possessive, burning determination. Outside the window, the rain continues to pour heavily, splashing against the glass of the quiet room. From outside the window, Loria and Xenox can be seen sitting together at the table, discussing their arranged marriage amidst the storm. Loria is so lost in her thoughts that she completely zones out, accidentally pouring tea over the table as she mutters, "Han." Startled out of her daydream by his voice calling Miss Rohan, she gasps in surprise, "Huh." She looks down at the wet, stained flyer in front of her, suddenly remembering, that's right, we're in the middle of a matchmaking session. In a flurry of panic, Loria waves the damp flyer and apologizes. "Sorry about the paper, it suddenly started raining." Xenox calmly replies, "It's okay, don't worry, please dry it off." Xenox stares at the flyer with a questioning look, wondering, was that just my imagination? While Loria breaks into a nervous sweat of relief, thinking, I'm relieved. Trying to maintain her composure, Loria smiles politely and says, "I apologize, it was so sudden. May I ask for your name?" While secretly thinking, first, let's pretend we're meeting for the first time. With a quiet, serious expression, the handsome Duke introduces himself simply, Xenox Classium. Laria's eyes widen slightly in apprehension, a small bead of sweat rolling down her cheek as she hears his name. The rare blood of the legendary Black Wolf flows deep within the veins of his noble lineage. He is the formidable head of the only Duke family in the entire empire, the powerful and respected Xenox Classium. His sharp, piercing golden eyes convey a sense of calm authority and dangerous strength. It is said that those who carry the blood of the Black Wolf can only find their true meaning in life through relentless battle, earning him fearsome titles like Beastman Eater and many others. A battle-hardened warrior, he stands draped in heavy steel armor and a crimson cloak, carrying the weight of his dark reputation. Taking a slow sip of her tea, Loria reflects, "Personally, I think those are just baseless rumors. I've seen the real him up close for half a year, closer than anyone." Xenox turns his intense gaze back to her and asks directly, "You're from the White Fox clan, aren't you?" Loria responds politely, "Yes, that's correct," while realizing to herself, so that's why he arranged this marriage meeting. Loria explains, "I was also suddenly ordered to participate in a matchmaking meeting," noting inwardly that it seems he was in a similar situation on his side too. Xenox states his intentions flatly, "I'm not planning to get married yet." Loria quickly agrees, Yes, me neither," as Xenox pauses before adding, "Since you're also from the White Fox clan." He delivers a shocking line, "You're the same as Shiro." Hearing this, Loria completely chokes and spits her tea out in sheer panic. She recalls the gossip of citizens on the street who were discussing how the search flyers for the little white fox were posted all over the Imperial City, making it common knowledge to everyone. Trying to laugh it off nervously, Loria holds up the damp flyer and says, "You must really care for it to have gone to this extent." Xenox sits with his arms crossed, his expression turning incredibly solemn and intense as he thinks of his lost pet. Staring ahead with unshakable resolve, Xenox declares, "Yes, of course, I must find it, no matter what." Suddenly, a guard bursts into the room in a panic, shouting, "Your Grace, the Duke!" causing Laria to whirl around in shock. The guard exclaims breathlessly, "They say Shiro has been found," leaving both Laria and Xenox utterly shocked. Her heart stops as she gasps, "Huh? Shiro?" Well, Xenox immediately stands up, ordering, "Let's go immediately," to which the guard responds, "Yes." Left entirely alone at the table, Loria sits in absolute confusion, thinking, if it's Shiro, but Shiro is me, though. Where did he go? Clearing her throat to regain her composure in the quiet room, she lets out a soft, ahem. Stepping out of the establishment into the rain, she walks away with a lighter heart, thinking, for now, it seems we managed to avoid disaster. Thank you very much. Sighing with deep relief, she thinks, I'm glad I didn't get caught. Since I'm here, let's stop by Solike's place. She looks around cautiously, checking every corner of the street to make sure she isn't being followed, thinking, there's no one here, right? Reaching into her collar, she pulls out a beautiful, glowing blue magic crystal necklace, which shines brightly under her touch. The magical blue crystal radiates a powerful, dazzling light, unleashing its ancient runic magic as icy fragments shatter around it. Laria's beautiful magic crystal necklace glows with a brilliant light, unleashing a powerful aura of ancient ice magic around her elegant blue gown. The swirling blue light gently surrounds Loria's face as she remains still with her eyes closed. She slowly opens her eyes, revealing her brilliant, glowing blue eyes shining with newfound determination. Her long white hair flows beautifully around her as she gains consciousness and smiles softly. Soleik smiles warmly, letting out a soft, "Oh." He looks down from where he stands near the fireplace and says, "You've come. It's been a while." Sitting back, Soleik, a beastman of the Raven clan, notes with a smirk, "I thought you just got here. What an impatient lady." His expression turns serious as he tells Loria, "It seems even Duke Clausium has noticed. Someone is sniffing around about him." Loria tightly squeezes her hand, reflecting, "Actually, even after I escaped, I continued to investigate Xenox." The narration continues. To be precise, the fire that occurred 3 years ago at the Clausium estate. Amidst the roaring flames of that fateful day, panicking voices cry out, "Fire! It's fire!" As the narrator notes, on that day, an intruder entered the mansion. The narrator explains, their target was the Clausium family heirloom. Looking concerned, Loria asks, "Are you sure? This isn't a lie?" To which Soleik angrily retorts, "Hey, do I look like a liar to you?" When Loria flatly replies, "Yeah," Soleik exclaims in frustration, "This, even though I'm walking on dangerous ground for you." Soleik points a finger and continues his explanation, explaining that she took all these risks to retrieve the heirloom. Soleik gently pokes her cheek as Loria thinks with concern, "The intruders haven't been caught yet, and if we're not careful, it could even harm my family. I absolutely cannot let it be discovered that I am Shiro." That was the plan, but she thinks as a gloved hand suddenly grabs hers under the rain, causing her white fox ears to pop out in sheer shock. In the pouring rain, Xenox looks down at her and calls out, "Lady Laria." He gently holds her hand, their fingers softly interlaced as they stand together in the heavy downpour. Xenos stares down at her with a soft, pleading expression, his golden eyes glowing in the dark. He softly mutters, "Please," leaving her completely stunned. Loria looks up at him with wide, bright blue eyes, thinking in sheer panic, what in the world is going on here? They stand together under the pouring rain, a quiet, tense silence falling over them. A close-up of Laria reveals her looking completely flustered and overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. Holding her hands close, she thinks in absolute bewilderment. Seriously, what kind of situation is this? Walking under her umbrella, Loria reflects, "I was just planning to buy some jams while I was out." Sighing deeply, she continues, "But I should have just gone straight home." Suddenly, her eyes widen in complete shock as she catches sight of something in the dark alleyway. She stops dead in her tracks, staring intently through the heavy downpour. Slumped against the stone wall in the dark, rainy alley is a heavily wounded man covered in blood. Her fox ears pop out in sheer terror as she gasps, "Ah, Xenox?" It is indeed Duke Xenox Clausium, sitting silently with his uniform heavily stained with blood. Staring at him in utter disbelief, Loria wonders, why is he here? Panicking, she quickly grabs her head and thinks, "That's right, my ears." Cautiously stepping forward, Loria extends her purple umbrella to shield him from the pouring rain. Xenox slowly lifts his head, muttering a confused, His sharp golden eyes widen slightly in surprise as he looks up at her. Staring at her with intense recognition, Xenox mutters, "Shiro?" while Laria frantically tries to cover her exposed fox ears. Swallowing hard, Loria nervously stammers, "I, your grace, the Grand Duke." Xenox blinks in surprise, then quietly turns his gaze away in silence. Holding her ears down in a flurry of panic, Loria thinks, "Lady Rohan, I thought about pretending not to notice." Extending her hand, Loria asks, "Are you hurt?" To which Xenox softly replies, "Please don't worry about me." Looking down at him with deep concern, Loria insists, "But you're covered in blood like this. How could I not be worried?" Xenox looks back at her and calmly states, "It's not mine," leaving Loria completely horrified as she realizes, wait a second, so all this blood belongs to someone else? Looking at his blood-soaked uniform, she reflects, he could have just said he wasn't hurt. There's no way I can just leave him here like this, covered in blood. She recalls his usual behavior, thinking, maybe it's because every time Xenox gets even the tiniest injury, he always makes a fuss, and this time he only took a minor fall. Loria reaches out, offering him a beautifully clean, folded handkerchief. Under Xenox's suspicious and intense gaze, Loria laughs nervously and says, "I'll leave once I take it." Xenox stares at her with sharp, quiet suspicion as her fox ears twitch nervously. He slowly reaches out his dark, gloved hand to accept the handkerchief from her. Laria's eyes widen in sheer terror as she is suddenly grabbed, her white fox ears popping out completely as her heart races in panic. Looking down with intense, glowing golden eyes, Xenox confronts Loria as she nervously stammers, "What is it?" Under the cold pouring rain, Xenox looks down silently. A dark expression on his face as a trace of blood stains his collar. Touching his neck slightly, Xenox dismisses her worry, quietly murmuring, "Oh, it's nothing." Loria frantically tries to hold down her exposed ears under the heavy downpour, wondering to herself in panic, over these past 3 years, did he hit his head or something? Grabbing her head in sheer desperation, Loria tries to keep her composure, thinking, no, this isn't the time to be thinking about that. My ears won't disappear. I'm still struggling to hide my ears and tail. A tense silence falls between them as Xenox stares at her in shock, leaving Loria completely frozen under the rain. Realizing that he definitely saw her ears, Loria forces a bright, nervous laugh and backs away, saying, "Ha ha, well then, I'll be on my way now." As Loria turns to leave, Xenox slumps forward weakly, letting her umbrella fall to the ground beside a pool of blood. Loria stops in her tracks as she remembers Xenox's gentle, warm smile from the past, his soft voice echoing, "Thank you." Staring back at him, Loria's blue eyes widen with deep shock and realization as petals drift around them in the glowing light. She tenderly recalls, back when I still lived in the mansion, he always smiled at me, remembering his gentle, kind expression. But looking at him now under the dark, rainy sky, she realizes with a heavy heart, that's not the same smile as before. As Xenox reaches out a dark-gloved hand to stop her, stating, "I have a favor to ask." Xenox gently takes Loria's hand, softly interlacing his gloved fingers with hers as he calls out, "Lady Rohan." Looking down with a pleading expression, Xenox asks, "Please, can you help me find Shiro?" While Laria's heart pounds wildly as she wonders, why so suddenly? What does he want? Laria stands completely frozen, a cold sweat running down her face as she nervously thinks, don't tell me, is he suspicious of something? Trying to maintain her composure, Loria forces a smile and thinks, stay calm. If I slip up, this could turn into a huge problem. Why me? Xenox gives her a knowing smile and explains, because you were from the White Fox tribe, you must know their habits better, right? Reflecting on his words, Loria thinks, well, that's true. Beastmen usually retain some instincts from their original form, as she imagines different beastmen following their instincts, like sleeping in a den or loving to eat meat. Holding her hands tightly, Xenox looks at her with an intense gaze and promises, if you help me, I'll reward you generously. At the mention of a reward, Laria's eyes instantly sparkle with greed as she imagines piles of glowing gems and gold coins around her. Looking at his family heirloom glowing in her mind, Loria reflects with concern. It's definitely about his family's heirloom. I want to return it too, but lately there have been so many false reports about Shiro sightings. Xenox's expression turns dark as he explains, but they were all just traps to lure me out. Just now I was even threatened. They claimed Shiro was being held hostage, but in the end, that wasn't the Shiro I was looking for. Hearing his words, Loria's white fox ears twitch nervously in sheer apprehension. Overwhelmed by his intense presence, Loria quietly slips her hand out of his firm, gloved grip. She is suddenly reminded of her family's vulnerable position, the shadows of those she must protect looming over her. Looking down with a heavy heart and drooped ears, Loria gently pulls away, her expression clouded with sadness. Xenox looks at her and calmly explains, besides, I need to start preparing for my wedding. I don't have the time for this. Placing a gloved hand on his chin, Xenox thoughtfully murmurs, time, huh? With a sudden, dark smile, Xenox agrees. All right, in that case, I'll ask you again when you're free. Laria sweats nervously and stammers, I see. Plucking up her courage, Laria smiles politely and thinks to herself, I already gave him my answer. As she watches Xenox smile under the pouring rain, a deep sense of dread washes over her. She reflects, but it should be fine, right? Xenox's strange smile bothered me, but I tried to ignore the bad feeling I had. A dark shadow falls over her thoughts as she realizes that I'd be forced into having free time? Meanwhile, the charming Crown Prince Ishuel of the Flandel Empire, hailing from the Golden Deer tribe, smiles warmly as he rests his face on his gloved hand and greets his guest. Oh, this is unexpected. What brings you here? Standing in the Grand Library, Xenox firmly states, this must be fate. You'll help me, will you not? Leaving the young prince utterly confused as he sweat drops and asks, with what? Xenox flashes a radiant, closed-eyed smile, though a dangerous aura surrounds his handsome face. An ominous premonition looms as the text reveals, "I would be forced to make some time." Crown Prince Ishuel rests his chin in his gloved hand, looking thoughtful. Crown Prince Ishiel of the Golden Elk clan smiles charmingly amidst a bed of red roses, asking, "Oh, how unusual. What's going on?" The scene shifts back to the elegant and majestic Rohan family estate, standing quietly under the starry night sky. Inside the mansion, Loria looks completely flabbergasted, her mouth wide open in utter disbelief. A stern, deep voice asks her from close by, "What's with that reaction?" Before her stands Heldon Rohan, a northern sea serpent beast man who works as the Crown Prince's doctor. Holding a stack of books, he asks coldly, "Is that how you greet your brother who's been away for a long time?" Looking at her older brother standing before her, Laria's heart sinks as she thinks in dread, "Don't tell me." Trembling with a mixture of shock and worry, Loria frantically asks him, "You were fired? Did you finally snap and mess things up?" Relieved when he doesn't confirm her worst fears, Loria sighs and mutters, "If it's not that, then fine," while her maid helps her adjust her dress. Loria looks at her brother in silence, her blue eyes wide as she awaits his explanation. Pushing up his glasses, Heldon mutters, "I see, matchmaking," before suddenly shouting in a furious panic, "A matchmaking?" which sends the surrounding servants into a frenzy of shock. Barely containing his rage, Heldon yells at Laria, "Why would you? Did father and mother tell you to go? Or did you suddenly become interested in marriage?" While Laria sweat drops in sheer surprise. Pushing Laria for answers, Heldon demands to know who she met at her matchmaking, and she nervously stammers in reply, "Duke Clasium?" Heldon bares his fangs in a furious rage, shouting about how the crown prince must have ordered it, while Laria is left completely stunned by her brother calling the prince a crazy bastard. Shaking Laria in a fit of panic, Heldon darkens with rage and declares that he will kill Xenox Clasium, prompting Laria to frantically remind him that assassinating a royal is treason. Clutching her head in deep thought, Loria reflects on the situation and realizes that, in terms of status and wealth, Xenox is actually at a massive disadvantage. She contemplates Xenox's unique position as a duke, holding immense wealth that easily rivals even that of the royal family. Recalling the ancient feud between their clans, Heldon sighs in frustration, noting how the Fox and Wolf clans despise each other, and wonders why a wolf duke would ever arrange matchmaking with a fox. Heldon lets out a heavy sigh, admitting that he can't fathom the crown prince's true intentions, although he notes that the prince is known for doing bizarre things. Heldon firmly warns Loria to stay away from Duke Clasium and promises to handle the prince himself, to which Loria eagerly waves her hand, reassuring him that she has no plans to get involved. Heldon yells in the background that he will never allow his sister to marry a man who is obsessed with his pet, while Laria, equally exasperated, screams that she has absolutely no intention of marrying him. Loria walks down the hallway of the grand mansion, leaving her brother behind as she heads toward the staircase. A peaceful silence fills the air as she fondly reflects to herself, firmly believing that Duke Xenox would never do such a horrible thing. A formal, beautifully designed letter lies on the desk, addressed directly to Lady Laria Rohan of the Rohan family. The letter, sealed with a prominent red wax stamp, states that they have arranged another meeting between her and the Duke. Clenching the official notice from the Crown Prince, Ishiel Frandl, which states that Duke Clasium welcomes her, Laria screams in absolute disbelief. What did you just say?" An explosive scream echoes from the Rohan family estate as Loria panics over the unexpected turn of events under the clear blue sky. A maid gently brushes Loria's long, silky silver-white hair, preparing her for the sudden meeting. Loria looks gorgeous in her light blue dress, staring quietly as her hair is neatly styled and adorned with delicate light blue flowers. The maids burst into tears while preparing Laria, weeping over how tragic and awful her fate must be. Turning around in confusion, Loria sweat drops and tells her weeping maids that they are being overly dramatic, reassuring them that she isn't going to die. With tearful, glowing eyes, the maid holding the brush frantically protests, warning her that the Duke is rumored to be a terrifying beast man-eater. The maids cluster around Loria, hysterically sharing wild rumors about the Duke's violent personality, his madness, and even rumors that he has rabies, leaving Loria completely speechless. Forcing a nervous laugh, Loria tries to calm them down, arguing that while the Duke is indeed a bit unusual, he is definitely not a rabid monster. Staring at them with a bead of sweat, Loria softly tells her maids not to worry too much because the Duke actually has a kind side to him. Sensing a strange silence, Loria nervously asks her maids why they are staring at her like that, wondering if there's something on her face. Overwhelmed by pity, the chibi maids hug Loria tightly, sobbing about how pure and innocent their tragic lady is, while Loria stands completely frozen with her fox ears and tail twitching in defeat. Taking a deep breath, Loria closes her eyes and tries to compose herself, her beautiful silver hair shining under the soft light. Loria opens her sharp, striking blue beastman eyes, mentally preparing to face whatever lies ahead. A handsome, stern-looking Imperial Knight stands before her in an ornate uniform, announcing that he has arrived to escort her by order of the Crown Prince. Loria looks up in quiet shock at the knight, while her rabbit-eared maid in the background covers her mouth in absolute terror. Clad in her exquisite, flowing blue and white gown, Loria allows herself to be escorted by the knight toward the waiting Imperial carriage. Loria looks at the luxurious carriage under the bright blue sky, taking a final moment to steel her resolve before stepping inside. Biting her gloved hand in sheer panic, Loria sweats nervously, thinking that even with her magic jewel, she might not be able to hide her beastman traits if things go wrong. As she peers inside the carriage, Loria's eyes widen in sheer horror and disbelief as she spots an unexpected passenger waiting for her. A close-up reveals a pair of sharp, glowing golden beastman eyes staring back at her with calm intensity from the shadows of the carriage. Sitting comfortably inside the carriage is Duke Xenox Classium himself, sporting a handsome, smug smile as he greets her. Loria's heart leaps into her throat as she stares at him in complete, breathless shock under the bright sky. Clenching her hand, Loria stammers in a flurry of panic, "What is it?" as Xenox calmly tilts his head, wondering about her reaction. Outside the carriage, the horned servant and the bunny-eared maid shake violently, terrified by the overwhelming presence of the Duke. As the carriage begins to depart, a dark, heavy purple aura of pure dread emanates from it, leaving the trembling servants outside completely horrified and sweating in fear. Trying to initiate a conversation inside the carriage, Loria mentions that she never expected to be summoned so suddenly by the Crown Prince. Loria looks at Xenox with a mixture of confusion and worry, explaining that she thought he was the one who informed the prince that their matchmaking had failed. Xenox closes his eyes with a serene smile, explaining that because he hasn't visited the palace lately, the royals must have assumed they were getting along splendidly. Xeno smoothly mentions how busy he has been searching for his missing fox, prompting Loria to laugh nervously and awkwardly ask if he really loves foxes that much. Xenox's lips curl into a slow, mischievous smirk, his gaze locked onto her with quiet amusement. Xenox clasps his gloved hands together and beams with a dazzling closed-eye smile, softly confirming, "Yes." Loria's cheeks flush bright pink as she stares at his radiant, breathtaking smile in sheer embarrassment and surprise. Xenox looks at her warmly, his smile deepening as he adds, "I love them," leaving Loria's heart racing with a mixture of panic and confusion. Loria stares at him in stunned silence, her wide blue eyes searching his face as she tries to process his words. Looking down in deep contemplation, Loria wonders if he would simply replace his lost companion with another fox, only to immediately dismiss the thought. Xenox's expression turns deadly serious as he gazes ahead with intense golden eyes, declaring with absolute certainty, "Shiro is my only fox. There is no such thing as a replacement." Loria sweats in panic as she imagines her family's white fox form, thinking, "They must be after my family's heirloom." Peering nervously out of the carriage window, Loria is filled with anxiety. A wave of dread washes over her as she realizes, if they find out, things will get really bad. Clutching her skirt tightly, Loria politely tells him, "Excuse me, I hope you find what you're looking for." Duke Xenox sits quietly across from her in the carriage, his amber eyes fixed on her as he remains silent. Xenox looks at her with an intense gaze, murmuring, "Yeah, it looks like we'll find it soon." Xenox turns slightly, his magnificent red cape shifting as the carriage continues its journey. Leaning in closer, Xenox looks her directly in the eyes and whispers, "We've caught its trail." Startled, Loria swallows hard and nervously asks, "Did you find some kind of clue?" After a brief, silent pause, Xenox crosses his arms and smiles slightly, replying, "We're about to check." Loria panics internally, wondering, "Did I make some kind of mistake? No, we've only met 3 times. I haven't done anything suspicious." She recalls their previous encounters, thinking, back then they didn't seem to notice anything. Loria reflects on her unique ability, knowing that while white foxes are rare, no beastman is supposed to fully transform into a beast, and even her own family is unaware that she can. Troubled by these thoughts, Loria wonders to herself, "Should I look into this a little more?" Noticing her distress, Xenox looks at her with concern and asks, "Are you uncomfortable?" Surprised, Loria waves her hands in panic and quickly assures him, No, this is the most comfortable carriage I've ever ridden in. Please don't worry. Xenox gives her a gentle smile and replies, Then that's good. If anything ever feels off, just let me know anytime. Seeing his radiant expression, Laria is suddenly reminded of a warm memory. It's just like that time. She remembers his true nature. He was the kind of person who couldn't rest unless he gave away everything he had. A white fox is shown beautifully dressed in a pink ribbon and a blue cape, sitting comfortably. Loria reflects on his past loneliness, thinking, I was relieved he had no friends. She imagines how others might have taken advantage of him, thinking, if he did, he probably would have given everything away and will be left with nothing. Gazing at the gentle hands holding her in her fox form, she notes, he's too kind. She recalls Xenox working in the warm kitchen, carefully cradling the little white fox in his arms. Xenox looks focused and slightly sweaty as he works diligently in the kitchen. Loria smiles affectionately, thinking, if people saw Xenox making hot milk, they would all be shocked. The carriage wheels come to a halt as they arrive at the majestic imperial palace under the bright sun. Xenox gallantly offers his hand to escort Laria as she steps down from the elegant carriage. Xenox reassures her, saying, I'll do my best to keep things from turning into a big problem. I'm also planning to handle His Highness myself. Deeply grateful, Loria tells him, thank you so much. I don't have the courage to speak to His Highness on my own, to which Xenox gently replies, no. Xenox explains, in the first place, I'm the one who caused trouble for you when you're already busy, Lady Rohan, leaving Laria completely puzzled. Xenox looks at her and notes, it's about time to start preparing for your wedding. Standing by the carriage, Loria's sweat drops as Xenox comments, if it weren't for the wedding preparations, I would have helped, to which she awkwardly agrees, yes, that's right. Xenox smiles and reassures her, please don't worry about it, let's just focus on the audience with His Highness. Walking through the palace gardens, Loria looks up at a sparkling white tower in awe and whispers, wow. She gazes at the massive magical barrier shimmering over the palace, marveling that it is her first time seeing such a grand barrier. Walking along the path, Loria wonders how many magic stones are being used to maintain such a structure, sensing an incredibly powerful magician's presence. Suddenly, a heavy and chilling wave of intense pressure washes over Loria, causing her to freeze in shock. Trembling in fear under the clear sky, she clutches her chest and wonders, what was that just now? Looking down at her shaking hand, Loria thinks in confusion, it's not like this is my first time at the Imperial Palace. What is this feeling? As they walk together, Loria glances over at Xenox, whose golden eyes look exceptionally sharp and serious. The grand doors of the audience chamber are opened, revealing the Crown Prince sitting elegantly inside as Laria enters. The charming, blonde Crown Prince Ishiel welcomes her with a radiant, friendly smile. Lowering herself into a graceful curtsy, Loria politely introduces herself. It's an honor to meet you. My name is Loria Rohan. Ishiel grins and observes, so you're Laria Rohan. You don't look like Helden. They sit down at an incredibly long banquet table laden with an overwhelming assortment of cakes, pastries, and sweets. Taking a sip of his tea, the Crown Prince remarks, I didn't expect His Majesty to summon Xenox so suddenly. Flashback reveals that Xenox was suddenly called away by His Majesty, leaving Laria feeling completely isolated and desperately hoping he would return soon, as he was her only source of comfort. Setting down his cup with a soft click, Ishiel smiles and says, well, before that, let me briefly explain why I'm here. With a mischievous grin, Ishiel declares, I was thinking it's about time to set a date, leaving a panicked Loria at a sweat drop and wonder, a date for what? Crown Prince Ishiel looks completely baffled, his hand raised in confusion with a pink question mark floating over his head as he asks, what do you mean? A mysterious message floats in the air, confirming the wedding date, of course. Laria's eyes widen in sheer panic as she forces a nervous smile, sweating profusely as she stammers, Loria walks anxiously down the Grand Palace corridor, her elegant blue and white dress rustling against the carpet. Clutching her hands together in deep worry, Laria sweats nervously and wonders, do I really have to get married? The Crown Prince cheerfully lists options as Loria shrinks into herself, overwhelmed by his suggestions. Is there anything you'd like as a wedding gift? Will the ceremony be held at the Clasium family residence? The royal palace is amazing too. His Majesty is also looking forward to it. Clasping his gloved hands together with a bright, smug smile, Ishiel adds, he even personally wrote letters to every noble family. They've probably been delivered by now. Startled in the grand corridor, Laria gasps, Your Majesty, as Duke Xenox Clasium suddenly appears behind her, calling out her name, Lady Rohan. Running up to Xenox in a flurry of panic, Loria stammers, "The Crown Prince?" as Xenox calmly places a hand near her, reassuring her, "Calm down." Xenox's sharp golden eyes flash with intensity as he advises, "Let's go somewhere else first. It's too crowded here," while the palace maids watch them whisper in secret. Looking at the shimmering palace tower and fountain under a bright blue sky, Xenox quietly murmurs, "I see." Shaking her head gently, Laria looks down with a sad, gentle expression and soft blue eyes, whispering, "There's no need for you to apologize." Laria reflects on their situation as letters float in her mind. It's the Crown Prince who is forcing this marriage to happen. Besides, His Majesty's letter has already been sent. Turning his head slightly, Xenox explains with a serious expression, "It's most likely for political purposes, as His Majesty contrarily both cares about and is wary of me." An ornate scroll recounts the status of Xenox's family. The Clausium family is the only duchy in the empire with immense wealth and influence. On top of that, Xenox has royal blood from his mother, who was a princess. Walking alone under the shadows of rustling leaves, Loria reflects sadly, "Meanwhile, the Rowan family only holds a title with no real power. We don't even have wealth." Laria's hair blows in the gentle breeze as she realizes, if he marries me, Xenox will only lose out. That's why this marriage is also being used to pressure the Clasium family, while at the same time, a pair of fierce beast claws touch upon the frozen ground, representing their lineage, fulfilling the Crown Prince's long-awaited dream of racial reconciliation between the wolf and fox races. A chibi-style drawing shows Laria sighing heavily beside Duke Xenox as she thinks both goals were combined, and this is the result. Laria remembers her brother, a fierce, white-haired beast man bearing his fangs in a rage. Clenching her teeth, Loria sweats in panic and wonders to herself, should I provoke my brother into rebelling? Standing together in the palace gardens, Xenox looks down at Loria and suggests, how about we start with an engagement first? Loria looks up at him with wide, shocked blue eyes, completely stunned as she stammers, Xenox explains, calmly and logically, we can't get married right away without an engagement ceremony first. That way we can buy some time, and then cancel the engagement later. The garden fountain flows peacefully as Xenox's voice echoes, "Of course I'll provide full compensation for this fake engagement, because it's my fault that you're going through all this trouble." Loria stares at him in disbelief, wondering to herself, but who gets engaged just to cancel it later? Is he really serious? Laria stammers nervously, "Your Grace, don't joke around," as Xenox holds her gloved hand in the garden and promises, "I'll send you gemstones every month." Sweating profusely against a dizzying purple background, Loria's stunned as Xenox adds, "Any type and size you want." Shivering in shock, Chibi Loria listens as Xenox continues, "As long as we're engaged, I'll send them to you every month." Clenching her hands tightly over her elegant dress, Laria thinks in surprise, "That's too much. And if we successfully cancel the engagement?" Glittering blue gems and sparkling diamonds surround Loria as she blushes in sheer excitement, her eyes sparkling as Xenox adds, "I'll give you a diamond mine." Loria gasps in absolute disbelief. A diamond mine? Stars filling her eyes, and excited Loria eagerly asks, "Can we get engaged twice?" To which Xenox sweat drops and replies, "If you want, we can do it 5 times too." Looking up at the clear blue sky, Laria resolves to herself, "I'll do my best." A carriage wheel rolls smoothly with a gentle rumble as a voice inside says, "Thank you." Stepping out of the elegant carriage, Loria warns, "We shouldn't tell my parents just yet. Of course, they'll be shocked." Duke Xenox's gauntleted hand gently holds Laria's hand to help her step down as he advises, "Let's assess the situation first before informing them." As Xenox escorts Loria, explaining, "We need to align our story to avoid problems later," a booming voice suddenly interrupts them, shouting, "Loria!" leaving Loria's eye wide with shock. The mansion's front doors burst open as her white-haired brother bellows, "Laria!" and her mother, holding a letter, stands there with glowing blue eyes, demanding in a dark tone, "What is this? How did this even happen?" Her mother looms over them in absolute fury, asking, "Since when did you meet Duke Clasium, and why did you suddenly decide to get married?" Inside the parlor, a tray of tea and sweets is presented as Xenox politely begins, "I apologize for the sudden visit." The family sits together in the parlor as Xenox introduces himself. "My name is Xenox Clasium." Looking incredibly nervous, Loria sweats and watches her mother, thinking, "Mother didn't poison the tea, did she?" Samara Rohan, a sea serpent from the north, smiles eerily with a terrifying green magical aura around her, asking, "Your Grace, could you explain what's really going on?" While Loria panics internally, thinking she's furious. Xenox looks polite but serious as he explains, We weren't aware of the letter His Majesty sent either. Narrowing her cold, glowing blue eyes, Samara Rohan asks, "This must be a misunderstanding, right?" Theodore Rohan, a white fox beastman, sits sweat-dropping with a nervous fanged smile. Xenox maintains a serious, calm expression as he states, "However, it's true that I'm in a relationship with Lady Rohan." Theodore and Samara look utterly shocked as Xenox continues, "But marriage is still too soon, so we decided to hold an engagement ceremony first." Samara's anger explodes into a massive, terrifying green aura as she looms over them, calling out with deep fury, "Laria, were you forced into this by His Grace?" While Theodore sweat drops and frantically pleads, "Samara, calm down." Xenox looks slightly tense but stands firm next to Laria, who sweats in nervous anticipation of her parents' reaction. Laria worries about their high-stakes agreement, thinking, "If I fail now, not only will I lose the diamond mine, but Xenox will also be in danger." Desperately trying to find courage, Laria tells herself there is no other choice because it is a fake engagement, but her panic rises as she thinks of her mother. Duke Xenox Clasium pauses, his sharp golden eyes widening slightly in silent surprise. Forcing a bright, blushing smile, Laria declares to her family, "We love each other." Laria clings affectionately to a stoic Xenox's arm, nervously exclaiming, "It was love at first sight." Flashing a dazzling and energetic grin, Laria repeats her passionate claim, "It was love at first sight." In the background, Samara Rohan turns incredibly cold and furious, leaving Theodore to sweat and tremble in absolute terror beside her. Samara narrows her sharp blue eyes, resting her chin on her hand as she suspiciously asks, "Just what part of this man is so attractive to you?" Caught completely off guard, a sweating Laria smiles sheepishly and stammers, "Let's see." Laria wonders if Xenox really looks that bad to her family, reflecting on how humble and nice he truly is. Laria recalls her time with Xenox when she was in her animal form, remembering how he always understood her needs with just her gestures and was incredibly considerate of her. She fondly remembers his deep kindness, recalling the night he knelt on the floor to carefully dry her fur with a towel during a rainstorm. With a genuine, soft smile on her face, Laria warmly thinks, "That's why I fell in love with him." Xenox gazes forward, his golden eyes filled with quiet, contemplative thoughts. Chibi Theodore trembles in sheer panic as Chibi Samara's temper flares, her mind labeling Xenox as nothing but beastman scum. A beautiful and ornate crystal chandelier hangs from the high ceiling, casting a calm blue light over the quiet room. Back in her chamber, Laria collapses face down on her large bed in her nightgown, sighing in relief. It finally ended. Laria looks up from her pillows with a worried expression, knowing her parents wouldn't like Xenox, but finding their reaction surprisingly intense. She wonders why they demonize Xenox so much, picturing the incredibly tense parlor meeting where her mother radiated a terrifying dark aura. Laria holds her pillow close, realizing that if she hadn't experienced what she did with him in the past, she might have also misunderstood his character. Gazing into a starry sky, Laria remembers her first thoughts about Xenox, admitting she initially mistook him for an outlaw after waking up in a grand hallway. Looking at her small, fluffy white paw pressing against his dark suit, Laria realizes with a jolt of panic that she is still in her fox form and wonders who the man holding her is. The family butler politely reports to his master that he has found a fox, leaving the little fox to think in absolute outrage, how dare he say that? Xenox coldly instructs the butler to throw the little fox someplace appropriate as he picks her up by her scruff, leaving Laria completely stunned. The little white fox displays a hilarious face of pure outrage, screaming internally, "Are you kidding me? Why would you take me with you just to lock me up?" Laria remembers how Xenox asked if he should name her Fluffy or Naki, and how she struggled to survive his bath times while desperately hoping to turn back into a human. Her optimistic expectations quickly crumbled as days passed without her transforming back, leaving her to try everything to tell Xenox that she was a beastman. Laria stepped in ink and stamped paw prints all over his desk documents, only for the butler to assume she had just gotten her paws dirty. When she tried to read books to show her intelligence, the butler simply picked her up upside down and cooed over how smart she was, resulting in an absolute failure. Every single attempt to communicate using body language failed hilariously, as her desperate gestures were completely misunderstood as a desire for attention. Disheartened and exhausted, the little white fox huddled under her blankets, crying softly in disappointment. Kneading her small white paw on the bedsheet, Laria worriedly thought that living as a fox was becoming too easy and comfortable. She began to fear that she was slowly forgetting what it actually felt like to be a human. Resolved to escape, the little white fox sneaked out of the room, only to be startled by a sudden loud crashing sound echoing through the mansion. Tense and sweating, the little fox stopped in her tracks, wondering what the noise was and if a burglar had broken in. Peeking into the room, she was shocked to see Xenox standing in the moonlight holding a large, unsheathed sword. Observing his erratic behavior and the sword in his hand, Loria worriedly wondered if he was destroying his own house, thinking he must be out of his mind. Xenox suddenly turned around with wild, glowing golden eyes, causing the little fox to freeze in terror and prepare to run away. Instead of attacking, Xenox took a staggered step back as his heavy sword slipped from his hand, clattering loudly against the floor. Xenox collapsed heavily onto the floor among the broken debris, leaving the little fox to peek out from her hiding spot in stunned shock. The little fox slowly approached Xenox's motionless body, her blue eyes wide with worry as she wondered if he was dead. Placing her fluffy paw under his chin, Loria was incredibly relieved to feel his breath and realize he was alive and uninjured. Looking at the massive double doors, she initially thought it would be best to leave him there and escape. But her concern for him won, and she decided to crawl inside his shirt to keep him warm, feeling there was no other way to help him. After that fateful night, things changed between them, and the little fox found herself happily glued to Xenox's side all day long. Back in her room, Loria looks out thoughtfully, contemplating the idea of their upcoming engagement. Looking down at her human hand, Loria notes that she can no longer fully replicate her Beastman transformation. She realizes that even if she told Xenox the truth about her past identity as the little white fox, he probably wouldn't believe her anyway. Hugging herself on her bed, Loria tries to reassure herself, asking, "So, this is for the best, right?" Suddenly, a massive, thunderous crash rattles the grand mansion under the crescent moon, shattering the peaceful night. Stepping inside the mansion, the butler welcomes the white-haired brother back, who demands in a dark tone, "What is the meaning of this?" Her brother stares in absolute disbelief, questioning, "Loria is marrying the Grand Duke of Classium?" Looking deeply upset and angry, he repeats with gritted teeth, "Loria is marrying the Grand Duke of Classium?" Sighing deeply in distress, their mother tries to soothe the situation, advising him, "Calm down for now." Pacified only slightly, the brother paces around the parlor and says, "This is ridiculous, and what does father think about this? With his personality, it would be weird if he didn't bawl his eye out." Indeed, his white-beasted father is crying face down on the sofa as the brother sighs and asks, "By the way, do you really not know the reason? Why are Xenox and Loria?" He is told that the Grand Duke agreed to revise the marriage announcement, which the brother feels is only right, muttering, "As he should." But his outrage flares up again as he slams his hands down, shouting, "Instead, it will be announced as an engagement? It doesn't make sense," while his mother narrows her cold blue eyes. Crossing his arms, the brother reluctantly observes, "It seems these two are seriously in love with each other." But his mother suspiciously wonders, could it be that His Excellency pressured her? Sweat dropping at the thought, the brother defends his sister, saying, "As for Loria, because she is so lovely, he must have lost his rationality." He imagines Loria holding a beautiful bouquet of yellow sunflowers and adds, "But to me, it looked like they were serious, both their expressions and the look in their eyes." Their mother is thoughtful, noting, "In Loria's story, His Excellency is kind and thoughtful. He seems to understand Loria well." Gritting his teeth, the brother clenches his white-gloved fist, demanding, "Who in their right mind would like a war-crazed bastard like him? They should separate right now." Shaking with anger at the table, he mutters, "Just thinking about putting someone like that in the same room with Loria gives me chills. However," he sighs, looking at an image of a distressed Loria face down on her bed, noting, "There is a possibility that forcibly separating them will provoke Loria's resentment." Wide-eyed in panic, he exclaims, "That's not good." He clutches his head, driven crazy by the imagined scenario of a cold Loria glaring at him and asking, "What are you looking at?" His mother smirks, resting a finger on her lips as she warns him, "If you go between them, you'll just add fuel to their love." Smiling with a devious, scheming look in her glowing blue eyes, she declares, "I have a plan. There's a way to resolve this situation without Loria hating us." The brother and crying father look up in curiosity as he asks, "What kind of idea is it?" She proposes a mysterious, glowing purple potion, announcing, "Give him the wonder drug." Picturing a sleeping Loria, she explains, "A magical medicine that makes you hate the person you love. We should be the ones to heal her first heartbreak. I intend to have His Excellency drink the wonder drug," leaving the father to gasp in admiration, "Samara." Tears of joy stream down the father's face as he asks with starry eyes, "Where can you find this wonder drug?" Under the starry sky outside their grand estate, she replies with an eerie smile, the person who is going to create it is you. Me? Where else can we find an alchemist of your caliber? Sometime later, Loria rests her chin on her hand in her elegant blue room, sighing, it's about time the plans for the engagement with Xenox are made, but is there any excuse to oppose it? Looking at the pile of letters on her table, she thinks even the letters that have arrived recently are all just asking about whether the marriage is truly being sought. It is reasonable since the other party is the Grand Duke of Clasium. Suddenly, Loria's bright blue eyes widen in surprise as she gasps, Picking up a beautifully written document, she reads, is this an invitation to the Fox Tribe's gathering? Smiling brightly, she thinks, it's in 3 days? In that case, it seems like I can go out without being suspected. She sits back on her sofa, highly pleased as she realizes the schedule and location are perfect, and even more, she glances at the glowing magical gems on her desk, whispering, I can now use magic too. Reflecting on her childhood, she remembers being a young girl clinging to her father's leg while others whispered, recalling, the Fox Tribe is a species that can use magic at birth. Although rare, a Fox Tribe member can be born without being able to use magic. I am exactly that case. Not only that, rumors even spread that I, who can't transform into a beast, am a mutant. It would be a lie to say I didn't care, but it didn't hurt me. Looking back at her younger self hiding behind a heavy black curtain, she explains, it's because my family didn't allow me to attend any events related to the Fox Tribe. Thanks to that, I grew up without experiencing contempt. Holding the letter, Loria thoughtfully observes, it seems the rumor has already spread. To think that an invitation would even reach me like this. She fondly remembers studying with her childhood friend, thinking, I learned on my own, and it seems fun to gather information and experiment together. Resting her chin in her hand, she ponders, it wouldn't be a loss not to participate, right? Placing her hand on her study table, Loria resolves, there isn't much time left. I wonder if I should start preparing now. She suddenly opens her door, only to find her parents and brother comically crouching and eavesdropping right outside. Caught red-handed, they sweat drop and cough, with her brother stammering, I'm just passing by, leaving Loria to think, I didn't even say anything. Facing her family, Loria nervously tells them, I'm thinking of going to the Fox Tribe's gathering. Instantly, dark and intimidating shadows loom over Loria as her family bombard her with suspicious questions. What? Where are you going? Since when did you become interested in the gatherings? And you're not planning to use the gathering as a pretext to meet the Duke of Clasium, right? Causing Loria to stammer, that's not it. To prove her point, she presents the letter saying, look at this. Her parents and brother huddled together, staring down at the elegant invitation with absolute silence. Her father bursts into dramatic tears, holding her hands tightly as he pleads, wouldn't it be better to play with Dad rather than the other beastmen? Both her mother and brother look completely exhausted by his antics, while her mother dryly thinks, I am a serpent beastman, but her brother pushes up his glasses, arguing, is it necessary to go to the Fox Tribe's gathering? It would be a waste of time, right? Sweating nervously, Loria blinks and asks, is that so? She hesitantly suggests, in that case, I'll meet His Excellency, only for her father and brother to immediately backpedal, pushing up their glasses with sweat drops as they yell, do you know, the Fox Tribe's gathering is the best. Go there right now. And that's right, you should go at once. Smiling sheepishly, Chibi Loria sweat drops and replies, got it. As the sun shines brightly over the Grand Rohan mansion, a voice echoes from inside, reminding her, make sure to bring a bodyguard with you. Standing in a beautiful garden, Loria sighs and thinks to herself, good grief, I am just going to the gathering, and yet they say I have to bring a bodyguard with me. Chibi Loria looks incredibly anxious as she admits, I know I am anxious because I've never attended one before. Under the bright blue sky, a loud voice suddenly echoes from behind the lush green trees, shouting, young lady! Panting heavily and sweating from running so fast, a handsome blonde man arrives. It is Rodette, a grassland hunting dog beastman and Loria's dedicated bodyguard, who gasps, I'm sorry for being late. Loria looks up at him and asks, why did you come in such a hurry? To which Rodette happily replies, because you called me after a long time. With cute dog ears and a tail wagging excitedly, Chibi Rodette proudly declares, today I will escort you safely. Loria smiles sheepishly as she watches him, thinking to herself, rather than being dependable, it's more like taking a puppy out for a walk. As they walk together, Rodette happily strikes up a conversation, saying, oh, by the way, when I took the medicine you gave me, my hair became extremely soft. Loria replies in surprise, wow, really? Prompting Rodette to ask, would you like to try to touch it? Suddenly, they arrive at the entrance, and Loria gasps in confusion. Huh? Loria's eyes widen in stunned shock as she realizes her name is not on the invitation list. In front of the grand mansion hosting the gathering, an outraged shout rings out, demanding, "What do you mean?" Rodette angrily confronts the gatekeeper, demanding, "Her name isn't on the guest list? Look again, properly this time." Loria looks deeply perplexed, thinking, "There's no way my name wouldn't be there. I'm sure I had responded, confirming my attendance." Stepping forward with a firm resolve, Loria requests, "Can I take a look at the guest list? I will check myself if there are any mistakes." The gatekeeper looks incredibly nervous as he nervously holds a burning match close to the clipboard, stammering, "Oh, that..." Quickly clearing his throat, the gatekeeper lies, "I beg your pardon. It seems I have made a mistake. I will guide you inside. Please head this way," leading them toward a beautiful rose-covered path. Loria steps through the archway in surprise, while Rodette glares suspiciously back at the gatekeeper. Walking down the path, she recalls the gatekeeper's words, "If you walk further inside, you'll arrive at the venue." Even so, she can't help but feel uneasy. Walking alone through a massive maze of tall rose hedges, Loria sighs wearily. How long do I have to walk? Looking around the empty labyrinth, Loria realizes, I don't even know where I am now. Suddenly, she senses a strange magic distortion in the air and gasps, "Something is strange." Sensing a magical barrier around her, Loria analyzes the situation. There is an illusion spell here, but if you take a closer look, it's obvious the magic is flawed. Clenching her hand as blue magical energy begins to swirl around her fingertips, she reasons, given its poor quality, using a large amount of magic would be unnecessary. With a calm expression, Loria activates her magic, unleashing a brilliant glowing snowflake crest. As magical cracks begin to spread across the illusionary rose hedges, she thinks, since this is a gathering of Fox Clan sorcerers, is this their way of extending their greetings? But wasn't that too easy? She wonders as the fake rose hedges shatter like glass. Staring at the dissolving illusion, Loria contemplates, I wonder if they were being lenient since this is my first time. The shattered pieces of the illusion dissolve completely to reveal a stunning, sunny garden venue centered around a white marble gazebo. Loria looks on in surprise, realizing everyone is already here. A lively crowd of elegantly dressed Fox Tribe members can be seen chatting and enjoying the outdoor garden party. Putting on a polite and radiant smile, Loria greets the guests warmly, saying, "Nice to meet you." As she passes by, the other guests immediately begin to whisper amongst themselves, questioning, what will happen now? And isn't she too lively? While another mutters, that's not what you should be focusing on, you know? The gossiping continues as they whisper behind her back. Didn't she just recently come into her abilities? And was it just a false rumor spread by the Count's family? Chibi Loria sweat drops in distress, thinking, why does everyone keep whispering? Hearing this gossip from strangers is a bit... Feeling out of place, Loria looks around, wondering, is there anyone I can talk to? When her eyes land on a beautiful red-haired woman standing nearby. Instantly recognizing the elegant woman in the striking red dress, Loria thinks, I know her. It is Sienna Hasher of the Red Fox Clan. Remembering her background, Loria notes, if I remember correctly, Marquise Hasher was the head of the Ministry of Magic, wasn't he? There's no doubt Sienna also possesses an amazing ability herself. Suddenly, two women with fake, scheming smiles approach Loria, saying, we apologize for our belated greetings. Please come this way, Lady Loria. Sensing their hidden hostility, Loria hesitantly replies, sure. As they lead her to a dining table, Loria realizes they are trying to humiliate her. There's not even a seat arranged for me. Nearby, another guest mockingly sneers, oh dear, what to do? There's no other seat left. Feeling the eyes of the crowd on her, Loria thinks, I really don't want any trouble at my first gathering. But they went a bit overboard. Looking determined, Loria clenches her fist around a magical seed, declaring, that's all right, I will make my own seat. Throwing the magical seed onto the floor, she watches as it bursts with golden light and rapidly grows into a beautiful rustic chair woven from thick branches, ivy, and fresh pink roses. Sitting down gracefully on her newly created chair, Loria glances at the table and calmly remarks, it seems this gathering is rather lacking in quality, isn't it? The snobbish guests gasp in absolute shock at her incredible magical feat, whispering, I thought it was a lie, and wasn't that just a gimmick? While a smug smile spreads across another guest's face. Suddenly, a dark, intimidating magical aura looms behind Loria as a condescending voice sneers, to think you'd specialize in such useless magic. Before the mocking guest can continue, a hand wearing a delicate black lace glove firmly slams a red lace fan onto the table as a stern voice commands, that's enough. Sienna Hasher glares with sharp red eyes, declaring coldly, I won't allow the degradation of a guest at my gathering. Sitting across from Laria at the beautifully arranged tea table, Sienna politely addresses her. I apologize, Lady Loria, and also I'd like to express my gratitude. Because of you, smiling elegantly, Sienna confesses, I've come to realize that such basic magic can be of some use. Loria smiles back politely while sweating nervously, responding, yes, the technique is also easy to learn. Sienna Hasher stares ahead coldly with her striking red eyes, her expression unreadable as she contemplates the situation. Fortunately, the tea party gathering proceeds smoothly from that point on, set against a beautiful sunny sky and a rose-covered white marble gazebo. Sitting at the table, Laria quietly listens to the ongoing conversations, feeling the subtle tension in the air. As Sienna smiles and chats elegantly with her guests, the main topics of conversation revolve around praising her achievements, along with the pride and superiority of the Fox clan. Resting his chin on his hand, one of the guests remarks, even though a genius sorcerer like Lady Sienna has appeared, it's a shame, isn't it? In a dark, tense atmosphere with chains looming, a man in a red cape thinks, if only we had that fox orb, we could easily crush the Wolf clan. Seated around the dining table laden with desserts, the guests discuss their ambitions, stating, the opinions of other clans are of little matter, so reclaiming our former glory would simply be a matter of time. With a fierce, glaring gaze, the man adds, if only we knew who secretly had it, then I'd be more than happy to take it as my own, even if that meant war. A floating blue orb appears in their thoughts as they discuss it. I absolutely agree. Just where is it anyway? Does it even exist at this point? And it's been so long since anyone knew where it was. Turning her sly smile toward Laria, Sienna asks, is there a chance someone has been keeping it hidden all this time? What do you think, Lady Laria? Caught completely off guard, Loria sweats nervously and struggles to maintain a polite composure under Sienna's gaze. Sweating profusely, Loria forces a tense smile and stammeringly thinks, she recalls the history of the legendary treasure. The Fox Orb is a hidden treasure passed down through generations. It was said that through the mystical power of the orb, its user could wield all types of magic. Also, this Fox Orb was a treasure of the Clasium family up until recently. Standing with a forced smile while a glowing blue orb is illustrated inside her body, Loria thinks in panic, as of right now, it's inside my stomach. Recalling the bizarre accident, she tells herself, I didn't swallow it on purpose. She remembers her time as a little white fox, opening a glowing chest. After being kidnapped by Xenox, I found the fox gem at the Clasium estate. Panicking as shadows of human hands corner her in the dark hallway, the little white fox remembers, that night, because of an intruder, I ended up swallowing it whole. In a human form, she falls to her hands and knees in distress, surrounded by books. I've tried everything to get rid of it, but there's no sign of it leaving my body. Surrounded by brilliant blue magical energy, she notes, thanks to that, I can use magic now, but it comes with the condition of consuming gemstones. As the guests chatter mockingly nearby, Loria sweats in distress, thinking, what am I supposed to do? If these people find out, they might cut me open just to get it back. Sipping her tea, Sienna elegantly changes the subject, saying, the location of the legendary treasure is definitely interesting, but training and improving one's abilities is just as important. A guest flatteringly praises Sienna, saying, as expected of Lady Sienna, your insight is profound. No wonder you became the youngest mage in the Magic Bureau. Hearing this, Loria blinks in surprise and repeats to herself, youngest? Imagining Sienna easily casting 3 massive glowing magic circles at once, Loria wonders, I figured they were skilled, but to that extent? Could they possibly control 3 spells at once? Intrigued, Loria addresses a guest next to her, thinking, I have to admit, I'm really curious about their abilities, before asking, by the way, what kind of training have you been doing lately? Laughing behind her laced glove, Sienna replies, speaking of which, that defensive magic you showed before was truly impressive. It honestly made me feel ashamed about my own skills. Laria's blue eyes sharpen as she focuses on the conversation, thinking, I'm curious about that too. Smiling brightly, Sienna proudly shares her progress. Lately, I've been practicing spatial movement magic, but right now my maximum range is only about 1 room. I've managed to cut the casting time to 10 minutes. The guests at the table gasp in absolute shock and admiration, whispering, unbelievable, that complex spell formula? Sitting stiffly in her rose-covered chair, Laria blinks in complete disbelief, thinking, 10 minutes? Chibi Laria looks utterly dumbfounded as she imagines teleporting across a room, thinking, It takes them 10 whole minutes just to teleport to the next room. Wouldn't it be faster to just open the door and walk? Looking at piles of complex magic formulas, she thinks, and was that spell really complicated? It's just like solving a math problem. Recalling her countless hours of intense study on a sunny windowsill, Loria thinks, if it's hard, you just have to memorize it all. It might take a bit of time, but sweat dropping as she glances sideways at Chibi Sienna, Loria wonders, did I just mishear them? Smiling modestly amidst pink flowers, Sienna says, you're making me embarrassed with such a reaction. Miss Laria, please do your best to keep up as well. Hiding a smug smirk behind her gloved hand, Sienna maliciously remarks, I do wonder if the Duke of Clasium isn't too fond of magic, but will... Chibi Laria turns away in annoyance, holding her teacup as she grumbles to herself, it's not like I was actually impressed or anything, and why is Xenox being brought up now? Meanwhile, another guest snickers, why is Lady Sienna so kind? Loria's blue eyes narrow slightly as she overhears the whispers. She even speaks nicely to someone from the wolf tribe, our sworn enemies. A terrifying giant wolf looms in the background of the guests' gossiping minds. Not to mention, some say she's mentally unstable. Is she brave or just lacking pride? Any respectable Fox tribe member would never fall in love with a wolf tribe member. Under the table, Loria clenches her fist tightly in anger, thinking, if I sit here and listen to this any longer? Suddenly, a loud shout echoes through the garden, my lady! Sienna turns her head in surprise as a worried butler rushes toward their table. Sienna demands, what's all the commotion? Why are you in such a rush? To which the butler gasps out, The thing is, the Duke of Clasium has arrived. Loria looks up, her eyes wide with realization as she thinks, it looks like the letter I asked Rodette to send finally reached him. Sweating in surprise, Sienna asks, the Duke? What business does he have here? To which the servant replies nervously, he said he's waiting for Lady Loria Rohan at the back gate. The gossiping guests are instantly silenced, looking completely pale and terrified by the sudden news. Standing up gracefully from her seat and placing her hands on the table, Loria calmly announces, I'll be heading out first. Raising her hand to reveal a sparkling bracelet, Loria unleashes a brilliant, massive ice crest behind her, smiling as she bids farewell. Please invite me again sometime. In a flash of instantaneous, effortless blue teleportation magic, Loria vanishes from her rose-woven chair, leaving the guests in stunned silence. Left behind at the table, Sienna grinds her teeth in sheer humiliation and rage, a dark, menacing aura surrounding her. Loria is stunned as she spots Xenox standing elegantly next to a grand carriage. Xenox? She whispers in surprise. Suddenly losing her footing, Loria begins falling backward with a shocked gasp. In the nick of time, a swift, black-gloved hand reaches out to catch her. Xenox catches Loria in a dramatic, romantic embrace, surrounded by blooming cherry blossoms. Loria looks up at him, her heart skipping a beat in sheer surprise. A tense silence falls over them as Xenox's intense golden eyes look directly down into Loria's wide blue eyes. Suddenly, a blonde knight comes rushing toward them at full speed, shouting in panic, "My lady!"
The blonde knight gasps for breath, frantically asking, "My lady, are you all right?" While Loria tries to reassure him with a nervous smile, saying, "I'm fine."
The blonde knight and Xenox exchange a cold, hostile glare, a silent war of nerves playing out between them. Rodette whispers frantically, "My lady, this is too dangerous." But Loria gently replies, "Rodette, calm down." Meanwhile, Xenox asks, "Did my coming to pick you up cause any trouble?" Xenox looks down with a hint of sadness, saying, I am a beast man after all." Loria quickly reassures him, replying, "No, your timing is perfect." Loria leans in and says, "Actually, the reason I called you today is..." But Xenox suggests, "If it's that topic, maybe we should talk somewhere else." Their footsteps crunch against the ground as Loria invites him inside, asking for some tea. Loria smiles brightly amidst a beautiful backdrop of white flowers, saying, "More importantly." Rodette stands behind them, crying comedy tears of pure frustration and dramatic sorrow. As they walk toward the carriage, where a small animal peeks curiously from the window, Xenox apologizes. "Apologies, it's a bit embarrassing. Things aren't as tidy as they should be." Below, Loria thinks to herself, "By the way, is it really okay to just leave things as they are?" Laria's beautiful blue-white hair flutters in the wind as she gracefully says, "I'll guide you to the reception room." Walking side by side with Xenox, Loria looks around nostalgically, thinking, "It's been a while since I was last here, but the garden hasn't changed." Looking at a golden field, she fondly recalls it was most beautiful when the sunflowers were in full bloom. Remembering her time as Shiro, the little white fox, being pampered by the kind-hearted staff, she thinks, I met a lot of good people here. The butler, the head chef, even the gardener. A wistful look crosses Loria's face as she contemplates her attachment, thinking, sometimes I can't help but feel. Loria stands before the grand doors of the mansion, her dress billowing gently in the wind as she prepares to step back inside. Looking at the familiar courtyard, she wonders, did I actually miss this place? Together, Loria and Xenox step into the quiet, grand hallways of the mansion, their footsteps echoing softly. Loria's eyes widen in alarm as she suddenly senses a dark, creepy energy creeping across the floor. What is this? She wonders, asking herself, is this place really? She looks around in shock as a dark, ominous mist begins to fill the grand entrance of the mansion, thinking, the Clasium residence? Feeling a heavy pressure, she notices a purple, spark-like aura surrounding Xenox and realizes she is sensing a powerful magical energy. More importantly, the energy here feels heavy and strange. It's the same kind of energy I sense around Xenox. Could this be a magical aura? So this isn't just an ordinary chill. Xenox asks her with concern, what's wrong? But Loria brushes it off, trying to ignore the dark energy, replying, nothing, I just feel like the air here is a bit off. Xenox glares menacingly at the bowing butler, who breaks into a cold sweat while explaining, really, I specifically instructed them to clean the house thoroughly, not leaving even a speck of dust. Loria quickly tries to diffuse the tension, waving her hands as she says, no, the house is spotless and beautiful. What I meant is, has a magician ever visited this house? The butler explains, no, as far as I remember, no magician has ever come here. Leaving Loria to observe her glowing gemstone bracelet and think, but there's definitely a trace of one here. They're wealthy enough to afford magic stones, right? Maybe that's it. Stepping forward, Loria lifts her skirt slightly and decides, I'll clean this place up a little. Loria closes her eyes and begins chanting, summoning a brilliant blue magic circle that glows with intense ancient power. The mansion rumbles violently, causing the terrified maids and servants to scream in absolute shock, crying, wah, and kya, and what just happened? The butler stares in disbelief, sweating profusely as he mutters, what on earth is this? With a serious, determined expression, Loria extends her hand to directly confront and break the dark magical curse. She firmly clenches her fist, completely shattering the lingering dark energy into harmless particles. Turning around with a bright, sunny smile, Loria cheerfully announces, don't worry, I've taken care of it. The butler stands frozen in absolute awe and shock, struggling to process that a simple wave of Loria's hand could dismantle such a powerful magical anomaly. Did she really fix it? There's no way magic can be dealt with that easily. So this place really was affected by magic? That means what I saw earlier wasn't just an illusion. He inhales deeply, realizing the heavy air has cleared and has been replaced by a warm, familiar comfort. But why does the air suddenly feel so refreshing? The atmosphere in this house has changed, just like when Shiro was still here. Chibi Laria suggests, just to be safe, I'd like to take a look around inside the house, and the butler eagerly replies, go ahead, do as you please. As the butler offers, I'll guide you right away, Xenox suddenly stops him, his gloved hand reaching out as he says, no need. Xenox gently takes Loria by the shoulder, looking down at her with an intense, intimate gaze as he declares, I'll guide her myself. The butler is struck with comedic, dramatic shock, thinking, the head of the house. Looking at Xenox's gentle, warm smile, the butler feels deeply moved, thinking that's the first time he's ever smiled like that at someone other than Shiro. I don't know the real reason behind this sudden engagement. The butler tearfully concludes, but this must be the fate that Shiro has given us. Chibi Xenox and Chibi Loria stand together side by side, as fluffy white tails curl protectively around them. The butler passionately vows, Shiro, I'll protect this engagement no matter what, while a ghostly image of Shiro floats in the sky, looking completely bewildered, saying, huh? Me? As they walk, Xenox apologizes, sorry about earlier, I accidentally touched your shoulder, but Loria cheerfully replies, it's fine. If we're going to pretend, we might as well go all in. The two of them sit down across from each other at a beautifully set tea table, a comfortable yet slightly tense silence falling over the room. Laria gazes out the window, quietly reflecting, this place hasn't changed at all in the past 3 years. Even that old servant is still the same. Xenox asks, by the way, the magic you destroyed earlier, what kind of spell was it? To which Loria Rowan nervously responds, "Ah, that." Looking down with a flustered expression, Loria explains, "Actually, this is the first time I've seen it in person." A dark, ancient book sits enveloped in swirling crimson and black magic as Loria reveals, it was one of the forbidden spells. Its target was His Highness. Xenox stands silently in his dark uniform as glowing red chains of magic bind him. Loria reflects on Xenox's condition. He's been experiencing strange discomfort for a while now, but ever since that spell was broken, he says his head feels much clearer. She notes that lately his beast transformations have become harder to control, requiring his heavy armor for daily life. Looking down at his gloved hand, Xenox explains, this isn't something suspicious. It's a tool to help control beast transformations. Xenox extends his large black-gloved hand toward Loria, asking, "Do you want to try touching it?" Amidst a romantic backdrop of cherry blossoms, Loria reaches out and gently places her hand into Xenox's palm. Xenox stares down at her with an intense, scanning gaze, thinking, just as I thought. A close-up shows Loria's beautiful, softly shimmering silver hair fluttering in the light, her skin as white as freshly fallen snow. A close-up highlights her brilliant blue eyes, described as clear and deep like a lake. Both of them suddenly startle, blushing intensely as they realize how close they are while holding hands. Xenox's golden eyes widen in pure surprise as he softly gasps, "Ah!" Quickly pulling his hand away, Xenox says, "Sorry," while Loria replies, "Ah, no, I also got too caught up in my thoughts." An awkward, heavy silence falls between the two chibi characters as they sit on opposite couches. Breaking the silence, Loria explains, if no suspicious individuals were involved, then it's possible that objects infused with magic have been brought into this house periodically over a long time. Gesturing outward, Loria asks, how about hiring a skilled magician? A quiet pause lingers over the elegant wooden tea table as they contemplate the situation. Loria remembers that the most talented magicians are from the Fox clan, but because of their deep-seated grudge, they wouldn't accept even the simplest request from the Wolf clan. Chibi Loria slumps down in disappointment, sighing, "He's right." Smiling brightly, Loria proposes, "Then how about I come by occasionally to inspect the house?" Xenox turns to her in utter surprise, asking, "Are you sure?" Loria cheerfully confirms, "Yes, at least for as long as this engagement lasts. After that, I won't have any reason to come here anymore, so it might be difficult, but I'll try to find a solution before then." Smiling sheepishly, Loria adds, "However, my magic consumes gemstones." Pointing toward a group of sparkling gems floating in the air, Loria awkwardly says, "So I'd appreciate some support for that. Asking for something like this feels a bit awkward, but..." Xenox is completely stunned, blinking in surprise as he gasps, "Ah." Loria assures him, as long as you can destroy that forbidden spell. A soft, incredibly gentle smile spreads across Xenox's face as he looks at Loria, framed by bright orange flowers. Chibi Loria tilts her head, looking completely puzzled by his sudden reaction. Outside the majestic white castle, a beautiful field of yellow flowers stretches under the blue sky as a shocked voice shouts, "What?" Loria is left speechless, wondering, even the number of flowers in this garden? Loria stands frozen in shock. Meanwhile, chibi panels show Loria bowing down before Chibi Xenox's mountain of jewels, thinking, I want to join in on the conversation. For Xenox, there's probably not much difference between a gemstone and a pebble. Xenox smiles warmly, saying, in the Colosseum territory, gemstones are as common as gravel, so please don't hesitate. Loria sweats in disbelief, stammering, that much? Loria panics internally, thinking, no, after the engagement is called off, I'm supposed to receive a diamond mine, too. And I've already swallowed the fox orb. Loria waves her hand with a bright grin, saying, I'm not even a registered magician with the Ministry of Magic, so no payment is necessary. Xenox smiles charmingly and counters, then all the more reason to give it to you. You won't receive support from the Ministry of Magic otherwise. Looking down at the parlor, Loria frantically waves her hand, saying, it's really okay, I'm doing this because I want to, while Xenox asks, are you really planning to do it for free? Loria quietly replies, yes, while the question hangs in the air. Why is that? A warm flashback shows Loria's true thoughts of her time as Shiro being carried in the kitchen. I can't reveal my true identity, but I want to be of some help, because I was your fox. Loria holds her gemstone brooch tightly, thinking, Loria looks up with a joyous, closed-eye smile, happy to help. Standing up from the sofa, Loria cheerfully asks, then shall we go check out other places? Xenox's side profile shows a bright blush on his cheek, deeply moved by her kindness. The narration describes their search. We searched together for something that could serve as a medium for magic, but there wasn't much of a significant find. Laria peeks curiously into a room behind Xenox, holding onto the door handle. Spotting her old toy on a cushion, Loria gasps, "My favorite stuffed toy!" Xenox asks, "Do you like stuffed toys?" And Loria quickly covers, saying, "No, I was just looking at it." Gazing at the fluffy ear of the toy, Loria thinks, "It's so fluffy. I wonder if it's being properly taken care of every day." Standing in a grand hallway, Loria reports, "I don't sense any traces of magic here," to which Xenox responds, "Is that so?" Loria turns around with a surprised expression, asking, "Are we really done checking all the important places in the mansion?" Looking intensely serious, Xenox turns to Loria and declares, "No, there's still one place left." Following closely behind him, Laria nervously reflects, as expected, Xenox also has a place in mind. The two of them stand in front of a pair of large, imposing wooden double doors, enveloped in an ominous, swirling dark magic. Startled by the heavy, oppressive atmosphere, Loria gasps in surprise. As she looks at Xenox's side profile, Loria grows increasingly anxious, thinking, "I was so lost in my memories of this place that I didn't even realize we've come this far." Deep within the mansion, a dark force seems to emanate from the doors, as the narration warns, "If you open that door and go up to the third floor..." A dramatic flashback reveals a massive, raging inferno consuming a grand library. That place, which once turned into a sea of fire, is... Walking down the hallway, Xenox explains, "There's a place I used as a study, but it was badly damaged in a fire a few years ago." Xenos reaches out his black-gloved hand toward the golden handle of the door, warning, "It might be a bit shocking to see." Loria stands frozen, swallowing hard in fear as she frantically thinks, even though the fire was years ago, the inside is still left as it was? Are they trying to secure evidence or something? Shaking with pure terror, Loria grips her blue dress tightly, panicking, "If they find out I took the fox orb?" Looking down with a sweat drop on her cheek, Loria's blue eyes tremble with fear as she thinks, "I absolutely can't let that happen," while Xenox slowly begins to open the door. Xenox suddenly pauses and glances back over his shoulder, his sharp golden eyes scanning Laria's behavior. Sensing her immense distress, Xenox gently calls out, "Lady Rohan," while Loria continues to tremble, desperately clutching her skirt. Instantly closing the door with a firm click, Xenox turns back to her and says, "Still, it's embarrassing to show you a room that hasn't been cleaned up." Laria's mind races in absolute panic. "It's a lie. He must be testing me. It's in the past, and I've gained the power to protect myself now, so I thought I'd be fine. But even now, Her beast ears twitch uncontrollably as memories of her time as Shiro flood her mind. Sensing her vulnerability, Xenox slowly extends his large, leather-gloved hand toward Loria's soft silver hair. Suddenly, Xenox pulls Loria close, placing his hand protectively behind her head. The sudden physical contact causes Loria's white beast ears to pop out in shock as she presses against his chest. A close-up highlights Loria's trembling blue eye, her pupil narrowing into a slit like a startled beast. Holding her close, Xenox notices an immediate change in his own condition. The symptoms of madness have completely subsided. Just by touching her, it has an effect greater than the fox orb. A dark narrative panel details Xenox's painful struggle. "For the past few years, I've been acutely aware that I wasn't in my right mind, with genetic tinnitus and auditory hallucinations." Xenox reflects on how he managed to survive. "Thanks to the fox orb's power, I was able to improve, albeit partially." Looking down at the beautiful silver-haired girl in his arms, Xenox wonders, is it because of the faint power of the fox orb I sense from her? At first I thought she might have come into contact with Shiro, but if I were to propose an even more far-fetched hypothesis, he quickly dismisses the wild idea, thinking, no, that can't be. Shiro was a full-fledged fox and Loria's a beast man. Even for a mutation like me, maintaining a perfect animal form doesn't last more than a few days. Reflecting further, Xenox notes, more importantly, if Loria Rohan really were Shiro, it would be strange that no information about her has come up for over half a year. His desk is covered with several missing pet flyers featuring Shiro the white fox. Xenox considers the influence of her noble family. If that were the case, her family would have launched a search for her immediately. Turning away and placing a hand over his face, Xenox sighs in frustration. I must be losing my mind. Standing amidst the charred ruins of the old study, Xenox's heart heavy with regret. If only I hadn't left Shiro behind that day, I wouldn't have to be troubled by this now. No, at the very least, if I had taken Shiro with me. A warm, sunlit memory shows Xenox sitting in his study, gently feeding Shiro the white fox, who happily looked up at him. Did she resent me for leaving it alone in the mansion? Or had she grown to dislike me and decided not to return? The memory turns painful as he remembers Shiro trembling in terror amidst the burning library. Shiro is clever, and she did once try to run away. His expression darkens with absolute resolve as he grips his hair, declaring, "No matter what happens, I won't let her escape again." Laria's soft, shimmering silver hair flutters gently in the quiet room. Sometime later, Loria sits by her window, deeply troubled as she reflects, "Ever since then, I haven't been able to bring myself to go back to Xenox. I'm sure he suspected something." Burying her face in her hands, she laments, "I couldn't even enter the room, just trembling there. I even accidentally hugged him. I need to find a way to clear his suspicions." Suddenly, a black feather floats down past her window, catching her attention. Huh. Looking up, Loria spots a large black bird carrying a scroll. It's Solike's carrier pigeon. Maybe he's telling me to stop overthinking and just focus on work? Unrolling the message, Loria reads the handwriting. He wants me to come right away? It must be something urgent. Let's see. Her eyes widen in complete shock as she reads the contents. A red fox? Behind her, the majestic image of a crimson red fox with glowing red eyes appears, surrounded by roses. Under a brilliant full moon, a grand lit clock tower rises majestically into the night sky as a voice praises, "That's absolutely fantastic, Lady Sienna." Inside the tower, a glowing blue magical circle shines brilliantly on the floor as the voice continues. "I can't believe you could create a technique to shorten time this much, as expected from the extraordinary genius." Smirking with a mixture of polite modesty and secret ambition, Sienna replies, "It's an honor. I still have a long way to go." The magic circle slowly dissolves into glittering blue particles as her companion insists, "Please don't brush away the fact you're able to complete this kind of technique. How did you come up with such a technique?" Sienna casually answers, "It just flashed into my mind while I was practicing teleportation magic." The scholar enthusiastically predicts, "With this, it's just a matter of time before you reach the top of the Ministry of Magic." Taken aback, Sienna sweats slightly and asks, "Is this technique that amazing?" Smiling warmly, the scholar introduces himself as Samad Ravel, a high-ranked magician of the Ministry of Magic, declaring, "I've devoted my entire life to researching magic, and yet this is my first time discovering such an idea." As Samad adds, "You'd probably be in the top 5 at the Ministry of Magic." Sienna silently clenches her fist, which is covered in dirty black magic stains, her eyes filled with cold determination. Looking down at the empty spot on the carpet, Sienna fumes internally. A technique that even Samad praises so highly? And you were using it like it was the most natural thing in the world? Gritting her teeth, her inner voice seethes with intense hatred and jealousy. "I'm certain there's no doubt they cheated somehow. I will expose you at any cost." Later that night, Sienna walks down a quiet city street, unlocking a wooden door to a rustic establishment. Stepping inside, she is greeted by a handsome young man with braided purple hair, a green eye, and a black eye patch, who sits casually behind the counter. Smiling warmly at his guest, the purple-haired man cheerfully welcomes her, saying, "Welcome." Dressed in a stunning red gown with a wide-brimmed rose hat, Sienna stares at him coldly and demands, "Have you found any useful people?" Solike introduces his contact with a smirk, saying, "Of course, I've prepared the best person for the job." Staring coldly, Sienna demands, "Take off your hood and show your face." But the silver-haired guest declines, explaining, "It's a rule not to reveal my identity when I do a commission." Stepping forward, Sienna questions, "How can I put my trust in someone if I don't know their identity?" Solike raises his hands defensively to ease the tension, saying, Now, rest assured, I only introduce you to trustworthy people." Sienna demands proof of trustworthiness, but the hooded figure abruptly interrupts her, saying, "I won't do your commission." Sienna stands completely dumbfounded by the sudden and blunt refusal, uttering a confused, "Huh?" Pulling her hood down further to hide her face, she coughs nervously and says, "It seems that I'm not skilled enough to handle this, so I will not do this commission." Annoyed by her hesitation, Sienna asserts her authority, saying, "As a client, it's my right to decide that." Sienna snaps her fingers with a sharp click, declaring, "Now let's see what you can do." Casting a brilliant summoning spell, Sienna commands, "I'll borrow you for a bit," as a bright blue magic circle envelops them. Solike smiles and says, "Do as you wish." Wide-eyed with alarm, the silver-haired girl realizes what is happening and gasps, "That's Sweating profusely in distress, she trembles under her hood as the powerful magic pulls her in. Soulike watches the spell activate with a knowing smile, thinking, so that's how it is. Staring in disbelief at the swirling mana around her, she realizes with horror, this is my magic technique. The two of them materialize inside a grand stone training arena. Confused, the hooded girl thinks, this place is... Sienna glares at her with intense expectation and demands, now show me your true skill. Stepping closer, Sienna challenges her. Anything is fine, just use the magic you're best at. Trying to find a quick way out of the situation, she nervously thinks, let's just play along before leaving. Sienna goads her impatiently, asking, could it be that you can't use a single magic properly? Activating a bright blue, clock-patterned magic circle above her palm, she politely asks, can I show you some basic offensive magic? Sienna scoffs arrogantly, letting out a sharp, ha! A massive snowflake-like magical crest begins to manifest in front of them as Sienna boasts, all right, just to let you know, this place is protected with 3 layers of protection barriers. Confident in her defenses, Sienna smirks and says, your magic couldn't possibly... A sudden, powerful shockwave violently cuts Sienna off, her smirk instantly turning into complete disbelief. With a deafening crash, the massive stone barriers completely shatter into pieces. Sienna stands frozen in absolute shock, thinking, what? The barriers here are made by high-ranking magicians, and yet, just how did she? Feeling incredibly awkward amidst the ruined hall, she sheepishly asks, do I perhaps have to pay for the damages? To which a thoroughly flustered Sienna stammers, no, there's no need for that. Looking at her with wide, intense eyes, Sienna asks in awe, who are you? Causing the hooded girl to twitch nervously. Looking at the remnants of the powerful magic circle, Sienna reflects in disbelief that despite all her training, she couldn't leave a single scratch on the barriers, yet this mysterious girl shattered them using only a basic magic technique. Filled with intense ambition, Sienna realizes, I absolutely can't let her out of my sight. Instantly shifting to a sweet, polite demeanor, Sienna clasps her hands and says, oh my, I'm sorry for being impolite. The Ministry of Magic will take care of this place somehow, so please don't worry too much. Beaming with a friendly smile, Sienna asks, can you please tell me your name? Beneath her sweet facade, Sienna's eyes flash with cold calculation as she plots to keep this powerful monster by her side at all costs. Sweating nervously at the rapid shift in atmosphere, she answers, my name is Lily. Sienna clasps her hands joyfully, exclaiming, ah, so you're Lily, huh? What a beautiful name. If it's all right with you, would you like to sign the contract right away? Only to be met with a flat no. Stunned by the immediate rejection, Sienna asks, pardon? As Lily firmly repeats, I won't do your commission. Clinging to hope, Sienna desperately pleads, can you tell me the reason? If it's about the conditions, I'll try to meet your wishes as best I can, but... As Lily begins to explain, it's because I'm incapable, Sienna suddenly cuts in, shouting, 10 times. Offering a dazzling array of precious gems, Sienna promises, if you accept this contract right here, I'll pay you 10 times your normal amount. Also, I'll cover your various expenses as well, all of them, while Lily sways at the mention of the money. Instantly swayed by the massive payment, Lily raises her hand and happily declares, I'll do it, leaving Sienna utterly dumbfounded by the sudden change of heart. Sienna smiles weakly, stammering, thank you very much, while Lily wonders why the client agreed to her terms so quickly. A text box reveals Sienna's true hidden motive, to get all the information about Loria Rohan. Looking down at the silver-haired girl, Sienna's inner voice commands, you need to observe her movements and report them all to me. Sometime later, Lily slams her hands on the counter and angrily confronts Soulike, yelling, Soulike, you knew Sienna was investigating me and you still brought me here. Smiling casually, Soulike replies, I did, so what? Which only infuriates Lily further as she snaps, then you should have at least warned me first. Chuckling softly, Soulike says with fake remorse, oh, warn you, huh? Yeah, you're right, my bad. Feeling the heavy, dark aura emanating from him, Lily nervously sweats and asks, why are you so upset? Slamming his cup down on the table, Soulike smiles coldly and replies, I'm not upset, just mad at a certain someone. Soulike rants about his frustration, explaining that he sold the information because he believed her when she said she wouldn't marry Clazium, only for her to make a huge public announcement about her engagement, causing him a massive loss. Clasped in a pleading gesture, Lily nervously apologizes, I really am sorry, to which Soulike grips his cup tightly and demands, then I'll need you to make it up to me. Solik extends his gloved hand with a plotting grin, saying, "I've got another job lined up that's perfect for you." Lily warily responds, "Tell me the details first. I won't move until you tell me." "Just a simple escort mission for a noble." Lily stands in her blue dress and dark cloak, staring with wide, bewildered blue eyes as she recalls the job she was given. "A simple escort mission for a noble, huh?" Lily sweats nervously under her dark blue hood, feeling extremely uneasy about the situation she has found herself in. "What part of this is simple? You better watch your back, Solik." Lily fumes with silent rage, cursing Solik for tricking her into such a complicated and stressful assignment. "You've been busy, I see." A tall, handsome young man with short brown hair, golden eyes, and an elegant maroon aristocratic outfit stands on the stairs, smiling pleasantly. "I've been waiting 10 whole days." Leaning forward with a charming, radiant smile surrounded by white flowers, Xenox reveals how long he has been waiting for her. "I was an idiot for not asking who it was. The request came in 3 days ago, though." Lily sweats nervously, realizing she made a huge mistake by not checking the client's identity beforehand, while Xenox notes the timeline of the request. "I sent the letter right away. Don't tell me you forgot." Xenox extends his brown-gloved hand toward her, questioning if she had completely forgotten about his urgent letter. "I go by Lily. Right now, I'm just a hired escort. Showing up with an escort would only draw suspicion." Lily coughs nervously to clear her throat, introducing herself under her alias while trying to justify her heavily cloaked appearance. "Are you sure this is the right place? It doesn't look like it needs to be guarded." Lily looks up at Xenox as they stand in front of a grand building, questioning if such a secure and peaceful location actually needs an escort. "I've been dealing with a stalker lately. I don't know when or where they'll show up." Xenox turns his head slightly, his golden eyes filled with gentle sincerity as he explains the constant threat of an unpredictable stalker. "That's why I figured having a skilled escort would help." "A stalker?" In a comical, exaggerated expression, Lily opens her mouth wide in sheer shock and disbelief upon hearing about the stalker. "Yes, they've been following me for a few days now. They haven't made a move, though." Xenox calmly walks ahead, explaining that the mysterious individual has been shadowtailing him without initiating any direct confrontation. As Xenox waits, Lily reaches out in a panic, her brown-gloved hands grabbing Xenox's arm to stop him from walking forward. "Is it really okay for you to be walking around outside in a situation like this?" "It's something I absolutely couldn't skip, so I asked for an escort." As they walk side by side up the stone steps, Lily voices her concern about his safety, but Xenox insists that this outing was far too important to postpone. What kind of urgent matter could it possibly be? Staring ahead with a worried expression, Lily wonders what kind of critical business could drive him to risk going outside. "Welcome, Your Grace." The boutique doors swing open to reveal a dazzling, luxurious room where the entire staff bows deeply in welcome, leaving Lily completely stunned as she spots wedding dresses on display. Rings, earrings, and other accessories are ready in the back room. An elegant shop assistant bows politely, letting Xenox and Lily know that all the bridal accessories are prepared for their viewing. This is... Lily's eyes widen with absolute shock as she looks around the boutique, realizing they are inside a bridal and high-end fashion salon. "And your guest?" A staff member politely reaches out to take Lily's cloak, causing her to flinch back in sudden panic. "Ah!" Xenox gasps slightly, his sharp golden eyes widening as he realizes Lily's discomfort. "Understood. Right this way." With a warm and charming smile, Xenox politely dismisses the staff, signaling them to guide them directly to the private viewing area. Lily turns into a cute, blushing chibi character under her hood, her heart pounding with intense embarrassment. The sound of footsteps echoes as Lily quietly follows Xenox through the luxurious salon, keeping a close but self-conscious distance. "Today's a really important day. I'm picking out a gift for my fiancé." A beautiful pink dress with a large bow hangs on a rack as Xenox explains the purpose of his visit. "She hasn't shown her face in 10 days. Maybe she's upset with me." Xenox holds a lovely gown with a slight look of distress, while Lily flinches and sweats profusely right behind him, feeling incredibly guilty. With a gentle touch, Xenox's dark-gloved hand softly strokes the delicate fabric of the pink dress, showing his deep affection and care. "That's why I thought I need to try harder." Xenox picks up a magnificent, sparkling light blue gown adorned with pearls and lace, looking back at Lily with a determined, loving smile. "I'm sorry, I've just been so busy." Lily sweats nervously and smiles weakly. offering a sheepish and apologetic excuse for her long absence. No matter how busy I am, I'll just have to make sure she never forgets me. Xenox smiles warmly with an intense look in his eyes, declaring his resolve to stay on her mind, which leaves a tiny, shocked Lily gasping in the corner. I'll keep in touch properly from now on. I'd really appreciate that. By the way, Lily, I'd love to hear your opinion. Lily promises to be more attentive in the future, prompting a delighted response from Xenox as he asks for her thoughts on the dresses, showing her wide blue eyes trembling with anxiety. The stunning light blue gown is showcased in all its sparkling, ruffled glory, shimmering under the warm boutique lights. Xenox holds up the magnificent blue wedding gown right in front of Lily, presenting it for her inspection. Lily blushes deeply, her bright blue eyes trembling as Xenox softly calls her name. Huh? Clutching her cloak tightly over her chest, Lily's heart races as she experiences a sudden, unfamiliar flutter of emotion. Why is my heart racing like this? Staring up with wide, shimmering eyes, Lily touches her chest in confusion, wondering why her heart is beating so rapidly in his presence. An incredibly tense, romantic moment hangs in the air as Xenox and Lily stand close, staring deeply into each other's eyes while blushing. I just feel a little hot, that's all. I see. Panicking, Lily covers her bright red face with her hands and stammers an excuse about the heat, while Xenos watches her with a soft, understanding gaze. If you start to feel unwell, please don't hesitate to tell me. Xenox's armored hand gently rests on Lily's shoulder as he speaks with genuine concern for her well-being. I'm worried about you. Leaning close with a gentle, protective touch on her shoulder, Xenox softly admits his worry, making Lily blush even more furiously. He's worried because of last time. Xenox looks down with a solemn, thoughtful expression, remembering their past encounter. Xenox was probably pretty shaken up too. Lily walks silently, reflecting on how deeply affected Xenox must have been by their previous circumstances, when a sudden chill makes her gasp in surprise. Killing intent? Sensing a sudden, overwhelming hostile aura, Xenox instantly reacts by pulling Lily close and shielding her in his arms. Watch out! Looks like that stalker's followed us all the way into the shop. Lily quickly steps in front of Xenox with her arm outstretched to protect him, pointing towards the entrance as a brilliant blue gemstone bracelet sparkles on her wrist. What? What do you think you're doing? Lily's eyes widen in sheer horror and confusion as she recognizes the person who just burst in, while a furious voice echoes from behind them. What? Lily shakes in comedic terror, completely overwhelmed by the sudden, dramatic confrontation unfolding before her eyes. Xenox and the boutique staff stand completely frozen, wearing hilarious expressions of pure bewilderment at the newcomer. Flirting with another woman when you already have a fiancé? A handsome young man with silver hair, round glasses, and an exquisite blue coat stares at Xenox with a terrifying, bloodthirsty glare. That night, after Laria brought Xenox and made an outrageous report, under a dark, starry night sky, a grand and luxurious mansion is shown, setting the stage for a new conspiracy. A certain plan was set into motion at the Rohan estate. As long as he loses all affection for Laria, that'll be enough. Inside a dimly lit room, a stack of heavy magic books, a candle, and a case of mysterious potions sit on a desk as a plotting voice outlines their scheme. You understand, right? What about the possibility of side effects? No problem. We're using quality ingredients. It's practically good for health. But the emotion control drug won't work unless certain conditions are met. In a dark room, an older noblewoman and the silver-haired man with glasses discuss the distribution of a powerful, conditional emotion-controlling drug to sever Xenox's feelings. The target must be someone from the Rohan family. As a golden elixir is brewed over a flame, a romantic vision of a brown-haired man and a silver-haired woman appears, hinting at a targeted scheme. And they must call the name of the person after taking the elixir. The fragile reflection of their embrace shatters, illustrating the precise and dangerous conditions required for the emotion-controlling drug to take effect. We'll need a way to feed her the elixir without her noticing. If this gets found out, she might never even look at us again. The silver-haired man and an older noblewoman discuss their clandestine plan to administer the potion, deeply concerned about the severe consequences of being caught. Seriously, why did Laria have to choose that guy of all people? The silver-haired man groans in frustration, remembering how protectively Xenox held Laria in his arms during their confrontation. I'll start by tailing him myself. A white-gloved hand stealthily reaches out to grab a glass vial containing a mysterious brown liquid. I'll definitely find a weakness we can use. Standing amidst thorny roses and a dark purple light, the silver-haired man adjusts his stylish blue coat, determined to find a way to undermine Xenox. Did you come chasing after Xenox? Lily stares with wide, startled blue eyes under her dark hood, shouting in pure shock at his sudden appearance. Who knows what he might have done to you? Why is Laria with him? The silver-haired man looks away, sweat dropping as he struggles to comprehend why Laria remains in Xenox's company. That was close. What's that? A sedative. Though he tries to hide the potion behind his back, Lily immediately notices his suspicious movement and demands to know what he is holding. Just apologize to Xenox already. In an adorable chibi style, Lily angrily yells at the silver-haired man, demanding he make amends for his aggressive behavior. I'm terribly sorry for earlier. The silver-haired man bows deeply and formally to Xenox and Lily inside the elegant boutique. Don't worry. It was a situation where a misunderstanding was inevitable. Don't touch me so casually. Xenox offers a gracious smile and places a friendly hand on the man's shoulder, causing the silver-haired man to recoil in silent irritation. A close-up of the silver-haired man's face reveals his blue eyes widening in sudden, utter astonishment. But he's not a dangerous person. It's all just a misunderstanding. Still, that killing intent was no joke. Lily defends him with a nervous smile, though she still sweats profusely, recalling the terrifying aura he projected earlier. We'd like to invite Duke Clasium to the Rowan estate. With a brilliant, charming smile and open hand, the silver-haired man extends a formal invitation to Xenox. Everyone, line up, report. Under a radiant blue sky, the grand and immaculate Rohan estate stands ready for a prominent visitor. We polished the windows until they were crystal clear. The massive arched windows of the mansion sparkle brilliantly in the daylight. The floor is so spotless, it's almost slippery. Not a single detail was overlooked. The butler and servants stand proudly in their matching blue uniforms, reporting on their flawless preparations. Good. Then let's... A handsome face curls into a highly confident, charming grin, revealing a tiny fang. Laria stands gracefully before a mirror, wearing an exquisite white gown adorned with a deep blue sash, beautifully framed by lush white roses. Wearing this when a guest is coming over is a bit... Laria looks at her reflection with a sweat drop, feeling slightly self-conscious about her elegant attire. Actually, this is almost too flashy. That man, it's annoying, but he gave you the perfect dress. To think he'd dare hope for a glimpse of Laria's delicate skin with so little effort? How naive! Laria's mother stands behind her with a burning, overprotective aura, examining the modest cut of the gown. But mother, it's just a dress. That's not how it works. A beautiful light blue gown hangs inside the wardrobe as Laria tries to reason with her mother's theatrical standards. All right, still, this is barely better than pajamas. The elegant blue ruffles of Laria's dress sweep across the polished marble floor as she continues to complain about its simplicity. Two silver-haired noblemen stand in their finest blue and white formal attire, watching Laria with calm and composed expressions. A split close-up captures a highly intense silent gaze between the bright green and shimmering blue eyes of the characters. Any more, and I might as well be wearing actual pajamas. Surrounded by gorgeous blue and white flowers, Laria holds up her skirt and sighs in mild distress. Pajamas? If he saw her in pajamas, who knows what indecent thoughts that Duke might have. Right, Laria? Pajamas are for family only. Shocked and panicked voices erupt from her overprotective family members. Showing yourself like that would ruin your image. Absolutely not. The dramatic warnings escalate as her family insists she must maintain absolute modesty. Oh, okay. Overwhelmed by the intense reactions of her family, Laria retreats into a comically terrified, sweating chibi state. It was just a joke. Report, just now. The butler burst dramatically through the grand double doors, interrupting their chaotic family conversation. Duke Clasium has arrived. Laria freezes instantly as the butler announces their high-profile guest's arrival. Laria breaks into a nervous sweat, staring straight ahead with wide blue eyes as she mentally prepares for the encounter. A magnificent fleet of black carriages drawn by powerful dark horses rolls smoothly up the paved path toward the grand estate. I thought it would be rude to come empty-handed, so I brought a little something. Duke Clasium, looking dashing in his long black cape, greets Laria in the courtyard with a warm gesture. Please accept them. Xenox turns with a breathtaking, radiant smile surrounded by golden flowers, showcasing his gentle charm. Laria's family members stand completely frozen, their faces rendered with comically blank, stunned expressions at the sight of the Duke. However, it might be too generous for us. It's not much, just a few things like a 30-year-old wine from Peltel, ageless herbs from the snowy mountains, a porcelain set crafted by Yant artisans, and so on. Not much. Each one looks like it belongs in the royal treasury. Loria's mother sweat drops as Xenox casually lists off priceless legendary treasures as mere trifles. Please accept this, at the very least. Title deed for Southern Resort Villa. A luxurious red ribbon document is presented, revealing he has gifted them an entire resort villa. I've already transferred the deed to her name. Please use it as your family's vacation home. The silver-haired noble shivers in sheer disbelief while reading the paper, completely floored by the absurd scale of the gift. That completely ruined our opening move. The Rohan family sits slumped on their sofas, entirely defeated and overwhelmed by Xenox's grand entrance. I feel a little bad, but I have to stay in character. Thank you for the wonderful gift. Laria puts on a sweet, fanged smile to thank the Duke, feeling slightly guilty about keeping up her act. Darling heart shock. Loria suddenly calls Xenox darling, turning her family members into frozen, shattered gray silhouettes of pure shock. Was it really that shocking? Clutching Xenox's arm, Laria sweat drops as her family slumps forward in a dark, comical cloud of depression and despair. Good work. Come in. A close-up of a woman's plodding, confident smile as she welcomes someone to proceed with their plan. Please help yourselves. An exquisite, sparkling three-tiered golden tray filled with delicious strawberry cupcakes and tarts is served. A beautifully arranged plate of checkered cookies and fruit-topped biscuits sits on the table, surrounded by warm light and fresh carnations. Huh? Those cookies? I hate them, so they're never served when I'm around. Loria stares at the checkered treats in utter bewilderment, realizing something is terribly off. Loria's mother places an elegant hand over her lips, letting out a subtle, foo-foo laugh with a highly mischievous smile. Mother only smiles like that when she's plotting something. Loria's eyes widen in sheer panic as she realizes her mother is definitely orchestrating a secret scheme behind the scenes. Don't eat them, Xenox! Loria yells in a sudden panic, desperately trying to stop Xenox from eating the suspicious cookies. These are quite delicious, Xenox says with a charming smile, surrounded by beautiful purple flowers as he happily enjoys the treat. Oh, your kind thoughts are more than enough for me, Xenox politely responds, offering a friendly smile as he addresses Loria's mother. I see, Xenox replies with a calm yet mysterious expression as his golden eyes shimmer in the light. Then, a gloved hand reaches towards the elegant plate, carefully picking up one of the checkered cookies. Laria, you try some too, Xenox says warmly, offering a cookie to Laria, who stares at him with wide, sweat-dropping eyes. The precise conditions for the emotion-controlling love potion to activate require that the target must be someone you love or a member of the Rohan family, and they must speak their name after consuming the elixir. Loria, please have one too, Xenox encourages, holding a cookie out to her with a dazzling smile while Loria remains completely frozen and nervous. All conditions have been met. That cookie has the potion in it. That's why we made it something Loria doesn't like on purpose. Loria's mother plots silently with a scheming grin. Your Grace, may I ask you something? Loria's mother initiates her inquiry under the elegant flower-framed chandelier of the drawing room. Of course, go ahead, Xenox replies. Loria's mother then states, as a parent, I want my daughter to marry someone she truly loves. Loria's mother smiles slyly over her teacup, prompting a silent, desperate plea from the onlookers. Say no? Please just say no. We haven't known each other long, but from the moment I saw her, I knew it was fate, Xenox declares passionately, enveloped by a radiant backdrop of blooming roses. Rendered in a shocked chibi style, Laria's brother, father, and mother react with utter astonishment to Xenox's heartfelt declaration. An awkward silence settles over the elegant drawing room as Loria sweats nervously, completely baffled by Xenox's unexpected answer. The potion isn't working? The silver-haired brother thinks in utter confusion, a nervous sweat breaking out on his face. Don't tell me they forgot to put the potion in, Laria's mother wonders anxiously, her composure beginning to slip. Something's wrong. A hand reaches out to take another cookie from the plate as tension mounts. Samara? The father shouts in absolute terror as he watches his wife casually bite into one of the potion-laced cookies. A dramatic shadow falls over the father's face as he stares in mute horror, realizing the gravity of what has just occurred. I want a divorce, Loria's mother announces coldly, her eyes flashing with sudden, intense animosity under a dramatic purple aura. Samara, what are you saying? I'm your loving husband, the father cries with floppy wolf ears, but she harshly slaps his hand away, replying, Don't touch me, you disgust me. What's going on? Loria wonders in complete disbelief as her father erupts into dramatic, tearful wails behind her. Where's the antidote? The silver-haired brother mutters, sweating profusely as the situation spirals out of control. Samara hates me now, the father weeps, prompting his son to yell, Get a grip, father! If we use the antidote, mother will go back to normal. But the word antidote strikes a chord of sheer panic in the son's mind. What's going on? Did mother drink a potion? Loria asks, stepping forward in alarm while her brother groans in silent guilt. I'm sorry, but could you step out for a moment? Xenox requests politely, maintaining his calm demeanor despite the family's chaotic breakdown. You put the potion in the cookies? Loria demands in disbelief, her anger flaring as she confronts her family. I don't care about that, Loria declares firmly, facing her brother with a vein popping on her head in sheer irritation. So what kind of potion was it? Loria sighs, rubbing her temple in deep frustration. A potion that makes you hate the one you love, the brother explains. Loria snaps, Are you stupid? While he weakly defends, Father said it's good for your health. So that's why he didn't tell me to break up with him, Loria realizes, recalling a tender moment of Xenox holding her hand. I was happy because I thought he respected my choice. I'm leaving the mansion tonight, so be ready, Loria's mother declares dramatically. The brother frantically worries about the lack of an antidote while their father begs on his knees at her feet. I can make the antidote too, Loria reveals calmly. Her brother's chibi head floats in surprise as she instructs, I'll go make it. Watch over those two until I get back. A potion that makes you hate the one you love, huh? Loria contemplates as she steps into the dimly lit magic laboratory filled with potion ingredients and spellbooks. Like that would ever work. This engagement is just a contract anyway. Xenox doesn't love me, Loria thinks, with a sad smile, holding a glass vial as she remembers his gentle face. Xenox loves Shiro, not Laria. I knew it, but it hurts more than I thought. Laria sighs, standing alone amidst thorny red roses as she faces her unrequited feelings. I guess I liked Xenox more than I realized, Loria admits softly, her silver hair fluttering as cherry blossom petals drift past. But this isn't the time to be thinking about that. Chibi Laria vigorously shakes her head to clear her thoughts and focus on her task. Loria tightly holds a brilliant ruby-like red gemstone in her hand, preparing to channel her magical energy. Though her brother is an exceptional doctor, his lack of magic talent prevents him from brewing potions. Loria realizes that only she and her father can craft the antidote using magic. Closing her eyes, Loria channels her mana into the glowing ruby, reciting a complex runic incantation as her magical power activates. Good thing I memorized the recipe, Loria thinks as brilliant blue light swirls around her, successfully conjuring 2 round flasks of glowing cyan antidote. Under the starry night sky, the Rohan mansion stands quiet as Loria successfully finishes brewing the life-saving potion. Loria's mother blinks in sudden surprise as her eyes widen, signaling that the potion's curse has successfully broken. The father, sporting fluffy wolf ears, looks up with teary, sparkling green eyes, overwhelmed with hope and relief. Oh my, I'm sorry. That must have been awful, the mother says warmly, cradling her weeping husband as he lets out loud, grateful wails of joy. I'll go see the Duke off. Once I'm back, I want to hear everything, Loria instructs with a sharp, intimidating glare directed at her brother. A close-up captures Loria's elegant blue high heel stepping forward as she walks down the hall. Loria walks gracefully through the spacious white corridors of the mansion, determined to bid Xenox a proper farewell. They targeted Xenox instead of me, probably because they didn't want me to take the potion, Loria thinks as she realizes her family's scheme. Looking determined, Loria promises herself, I'll make sure they apologize properly later. A quiet knock echoes down the mansion's elegant white corridor, right beneath a glittering chandelier. Loria opens the door with a bright smile, saying, Sorry to keep you waiting. A lot of things happened. She steps into the spacious room, looking around in confusion. Your Grace? she calls out softly. Laria's eyes widen in sheer shock as she spots something completely unexpected in the room. This is quite the predicament, a voice says, revealing a tiny, fluffy black wolf pup with glowing yellow eyes on the rug. Loria gasps, "Wait, is that really you, Your Grace?" Staring down at the tiny creature, Laria asks, "What happened to you?" Xenox, now in pup form, replies, "I don't know. I just had a strange feeling, and then suddenly I was in this form." Laria can only mutter, "No way." Sweat dropping in alarm, Loria wonders, "Don't tell me, is this?" The cute black wolf pup raises his tiny paw, staring at it in disbelief as magical sparkles shimmer around him. A sudden realization strikes Loria. Could this tiny transformation be a side effect of the potion? A potion that makes you hate the one you love? If that's true, then the Countess's behavior earlier makes sense. Xenox contemplates in his baby wolf form, while Laria realizes the pieces finally fit. Overwhelmed with guilt, Laria bows her head and says sincerely, "I'm really sorry." Staring at Laria's dejected face, Xenox remembers how Shiro used to give him that exact same look whenever she caused trouble. It's almost certain that Lady Rohan is involved in Shiro's disappearance, Xenox muses silently, adding, "There's just something strangely familiar about being with her." Loria takes out a small bottle of potion, saying, "I brought the antidote. For now, would you try drinking this?" Loria sits gracefully on the floor, holding out the colorful, glowing bottle of antidote to the tiny black pup. Looking down at his tiny paws, Loria suddenly realizes, "Oh right, you can't use your hands." With a gentle pop, Loria pulls the cork out of the small potion bottle. Loria pours the glowing liquid onto her palm, and the adorable black pup eagerly licks it up. Blushing intensely, Loria squeals internally, "What do I do?" completely overwhelmed by his sheer cuteness. Though she knows he's actually the terrifyingly powerful Duke Xenox, she can't help but find his tiny, paw-licking baby wolf form absolutely adorable. Covering her face, Loria quickly backtracks. "I mean, that just slipped out because you're so brave and cool. Even if he's a baby wolf, he probably wouldn't like being called cute." Tilting his head with an adorable expression, the black pup asks, "Do you think I'm cute?" Loria avoids his gaze, smiling nervously as she stammers, To prove her point, Loria lifts the tiny black pup up to face his own reflection in the mirror. Looking at his reflection, Loria holds him up and says, "You're small." Hugging the fluffy pup close to her chest, Loria admits, "I'm not sure if I'd say cute, though," while secretly thinking, "Somehow I think I get how Xenox feels when he looks at Shiro." "But why did I suddenly turn into a wolf?" Xenox asks. Loria replies, "I'm not really sure about that either," while privately deciding to ask her father about it later. Loria reassures him, "Since you drank the antidote, you should return soon. How are you feeling now?" Looking down at his paws, Xenox replies, "I don't feel any different." Loria gasps in sheer terror, thinking, "No way, what if he never turns back?" Clenching her fist in deep guilt, Loria resolves, "I'll find a way to fix it, no matter what. It's my fault Xenox ended up like this." The black pup gazes up at her silently, noticing her distress. A soft sensation on her cheek surprises Loria, catching her off guard. The little pup places a comforting paw onto her clenched hand, prompting Loria to wonder, is he trying to say it's okay? Giddy with affection, Loria thinks how cute he is before clearing her throat and saying, "Anyway." Under the glittering chandelier, Xenox asks a surprising question. "May I hide out at the Rohan estate for a while?" Leaving Loria completely stunned. "If people find out I've turned into this, my enemies won't miss their chance," Xenox explains with a downcast look. Loria agrees, realizing he has plenty of enemies to match his reputation. Smiling warmly, Loria responds, "Of course, you're welcome to stay here as long as it takes to return to normal." Looking up with his big yellow eyes, Xenox says softly, "Thank you, Lady Rohan." Back in the drawing room, Loria confronts her parents, lecturing them, "Giving the Duke a potion without telling me?" Her mother defends herself, saying, "I thought it was the best option." Loria fires back, "The best?" But her mother continues, "I had to make you break up before you got hurt." Looking incredibly hurt, Loria tells her mother, "Then you should have made me drink it instead." Pointing an angry finger, Loria demands, "Apologize to the Duke." Her silver-haired brother sweat drops and meekly replies, I will." The room falls quiet as her mother delivers a harsh command, "Break up with him." Countess Rohan explains, "You know the Duke's reputation well enough, don't you? What kind of parent would want their child engaged to a man like that?" And her father adds, The potion did work as intended, but seeing that it didn't affect him, the agonizing truth is laid bare. It must mean the Duke doesn't love you. Loria stands frozen, her heart sinking as her mother's words echo in her mind. Loria looks down in deep, sorrowful silence, unable to find the words to respond. Maybe the conditions weren't right. Like suddenly turning into a beast or something? Huh? There shouldn't be any side effects. Why? Did something happen? No, just asking. Side effects can happen if the potion's conditions conflict, but that's extremely rare. Conflicting conditions? Well, for example, say there's a potion that only works on the living, but the person who drank it is technically alive, but in a vegetative state and declared legally dead. That could cause problems, like side effects. Xenox doesn't love Laria, but he does love Shiro. But Shiro is Laria, and Xenox doesn't know that. So it's his feelings for Shiro that turned him into a wolf? No, that can't be. Xenox doesn't remember what happened that day. From Xenox's point of view, Shiro probably looks like a thief who ran off with his heirloom. If he feels anything toward her, it'd be resentment, not love. Still, most side effects fade in a few days. That's a relief. So Xenox will return to normal with time? I see. Thanks for letting me know. For now, all I can do is wait. But what about the Duke? Just now, he went home. A tiny, adorable black wolf pup trots softly along the quiet floor. There's definitely a connection between House Rowan and Shiro. I could sense the energy of a fox beat from Lady Rohan. It's the only lead I've managed to hold on to. Under the starry night sky, the Grand Rohan mansion stands peaceful and silent. Your Grace, are you there? Loria asks as she opens the grand bedroom doors, noticing a suspicious wiggle under the bedsheets. With a tiny pop, the cute black wolf pup sticks his head out from beneath the white blanket. Did the conversation go well? I asked about the side effects, and they said you'll probably return to normal in a few days. That's a relief. Also, just as expected, the family is against the engagement. Did that upset you? Loria looks down in deep, sorrowful silence, unable to find the words to respond to his question. Am I upset? Now that he mentioned it, maybe I am. The cute black pup crawls over and cuddles right next to Loria on the bed, leaning affectionately against her arm. Stroking fur might help. When I was in a bad mood, Shiro would always offer her back too. Loria smiles warmly, her heart melting from his sweet gesture of comfort. Why are you looking for the fox, Your Grace? Laria asks softly as she cradles the tiny black pup in her lap. All sorts of rumors about the Duke of Classium. At least some of the whispers going around were true. In the quiet forest, the bushes rustle as a small white rabbit pauses in the grass. The little rabbit freezes in terror as the dark, threatening silhouette of Xenox is reflected in its eyes. Most beasts didn't dare approach Xenox. It was probably due to some primal survival instinct. Crows fly away in panic into the sunset sky, fleeing from Xenox's overwhelming, terrifying presence. At that time, Xenox was losing his mind. Beneath a glittering chandelier, a close-up captures Xenox's crazed, bloodshot yellow eye flashing in the darkness. This is, again, these damn hallucinations. Xenox stands clutching his sword in a room littered with fallen knights. Or maybe I'm just dreaming. Either way, Xenox thinks, his expression dark and tense. I ended the war with my own hands long ago. I've already avenged my parents. No, the war isn't over. Your war will never end. A sinister double of Xenox whispers mockingly, covering his eye from behind. A close-up captures the unsettling, twisted smile of the hallucination tormenting him. It will go on forever, the voice echoes as a loud, glass-shattering sound rings out, leaving Xenox standing alone and covered in blood. A tiny white fox pup with bright blue eyes looks up in absolute shock and fear as a shadow falls over her. Lord, pick up the sword. Please spare me, voices plead as Xenox stands panting heavily in the middle of a ruined hallway. So noisy, Xenox thinks, as an oppressive purple aura cracks the family crest on its wall. Overwhelmed by the madness, Xenox collapses unconscious onto the floor amidst broken glass and debris. Xenox slowly flutters his golden eye open as he begins to wake up from his deep slumber. This is the Calacium estate, Xenox realizes as warm morning sunlight streams through the tall windows. Did I pass out again? Xenox groans, sitting up and rubbing his aching head. Fox? Xenox murmurs in surprise, spotting a tiny white fox pup sleeping soundly on his leg. Why doesn't this animal stay away from me? Xenox wonders, remembering how she bit him earlier, yet now sleeps peacefully beside him. Has it completely lost its fear? What's that noise? A shocked servant calls out, rushing into the room with a lantern. Startled by an unexpected presence, Xenox turns around with a look of pure shock on his face, letting out a sharp, "Ah!" Xenox gently cradles the small, sleeping white fox close to his chest, his white shirt contrasting with the beautiful white flowers surrounding them. A startled servant holding a lantern stammers in sheer panic, "Your Grace, I didn't know you were here," as he unexpectedly crosses paths with Xenox in the dark hallway. The terrified servant drops to his knees, pleading, "I was wrong, please forgive me just this once," while Xenox stares down coldly and demands, "Name." The servant stands at attention, shouting in fear, "Jason, sir," but Xenox quickly cuts him off, stating, "Not your name." In a cute chibi panel, Xenox holds the white fox and questions in annoyance, "That's supposed to be a name?" While the servant nervously sweat drops, internally thinking that the head butler gave the fox that name because she was just so incredibly fluffy. Standing tall and menacing, Xenox coldly commands, "Get out," prompting the terrified servant to quickly scramble away while stammering, "Yes, sir." Sunlight streams warmly through the grand window of the estate as the narrator notes that after that encounter, Xenox occasionally sought out the fox without any particular reason. Resting his chin on his hand with a thoughtful look, Xenox sits in his chair as the narrator explains he was simply curious to see if the fox was still unafraid of him, while Xenox muses to himself, "If I threaten it, it won't come back." Against a soft blue watercolor background, the narration box reveals that Xenox tried pushing the fox away several times, but his efforts were in vain. To his surprise, the tiny white fox proudly sits before him with a heavy metal food bowl clamped firmly in her mouth. Looking down at the bold little creature, Xenox asks in disbelief, "You're asking me for food?" before coldly turning away and telling her, "Go to the kitchen." With a sharp clatter, the empty metal bowl drops onto the floor as the white fox makes her frustration known. Standing defiantly on the elegant carpet, the white fox barks out an angry yip at Xenox, refusing to be ignored. In the kitchen, the head chef trembles with sweat dripping down his face, stammering in shock, "Your Grace?" upon seeing his master enter. Xenox stands calmly in the kitchen, holding the white fox, asking the chef, "What business do you have in the kitchen?" before pointing to the counter and demanding fox food. Back in the room, the cute white fox hops happily next to her newly filled bowl on the table, letting out a joyful quong, surrounded by floating hearts. Watching the fox eat, Xenox mutters with a stern expression, "If you make me do something like this again, you'll regret it," while the white fox happily munches on her food, privately thinking, "What's his deal?" In a cute chibi illustration, Xenox holds the fox up and threatens, "Keep acting cocky and I'll turn you into a scarf." But the tiny fox unimpededly thinks, "Look at my size. I wouldn't even make a scarf, not even a hand warmer." Heavy rain pours over the grand, dark castle of the Classium estate, marking the solemn memorial day of the former Duke and Duchess, with a single white chrysanthemum lying on the stone floor. Inside the silent memorial hall, the butler stands respectfully before a large portrait of the late Duke and Duchess on this somber Memorial Day. A relentless storm continues to beat down on the towering spires of the Classium Castle in the dark of night. Suddenly, a young servant in a black uniform bursts through the heavy doors in absolute panic, crying out, "Young master, the master!" with wide, terrified eyes. Inside the cold stone mausoleum, two grand coffins decorated with white chrysanthemums sit in solemn silence as the heart-wrenching question echoes, "How could something like this happen?" Mourners whisper hushed rumors in the grand hall, murmuring, "I heard the Duke and his wife's bodies were so gruesome it was horrifying, and word is it was the work of barbarians," while a young Xenox stands alone in his black mourning attire. Looking down with a heavy heart, the young Xenox overhears the cruel murmurs of the crowd, whispering, "He's still so young. I don't know if he can really take over as head of the family." A dark, intense close-up reveals Xenox's blazing yellow eyes filled with a terrifying, vengeful fury as he thinks, "If I just kill them all." Swept up in the madness of his thoughts, Xenox wonders, wouldn't it all become easier then? Before a soft tap sound suddenly breaks his dark trance, causing the young adult Duke to turn around. Turning his head, Xenox looks down to find the cute white fox standing by his boot, holding a single bright sunflower in her mouth, as he asks softly, "What is it this time?" With a light hop, the little white fox leaps onto the altar table, gently carrying the sunflower over to Xenox's side. Xenox stands frozen in shock, his sharp, golden eyes widening as he gazes down at the little fox's unexpected gesture. The white fox sits quietly beside the sunflower, looking up at him with her big blue eyes, prompting Xenox to wonder in disbelief, is she trying to comfort me? Xenox's gloved hand pauses hesitantly in midair above the fox's head as he realizes she's never offered her head to me like this before. With a gentle touch, Xenox strokes the white fox's head as she nuzzles affectionately against his gloved hand, bringing a rare, warm softness to his golden eyes. Resting his hand on her head as she leans in, Xenox tells her with a gentle sigh, "Your name's really weird. Fluffy? That's awful." Surrounded by a beautiful backdrop of blue flowers and floating petals, a handsome, smiling Xenox cradles the happy fox and declares, "I'll call you Shiro from now on." Overjoyed with her new name, Shiro prances happily through a field of white flowers, letting out a cheerful kyang. The narration box reflects on their growing bond, noting that at some point, having the white fox at his side became a completely natural part of Xenox's daily life. A shattered glass frame and a wilted sunflower lie neglected on the cold stone floor, accompanied by the painful realization life without Shiro was like living in hell. A tattered wanted poster of the white fox is plastered on a brick wall as the narration explains. He tore through the capital like he was hunting rats, but couldn't find Shiro. He couldn't even return north to the Classium estate in case Shiro might come back. The chapter card marks the passage of time against a dark smoke background, reading, "Just like that, 3 years passed," displaying the title card for Chapter 19 of My Blind Date Partner Was a Kidnapper. Back in the present, the tiny black puppy Xenox stares sadly at his adult self standing before his parents' memorial portrait, asking himself, "Why am I looking for Shiro?" Sitting in her room, Loria looks up as adult Xenox's voice echoes in her mind, declaring with absolute certainty, "Because I need her." Looking surprised and deeply touched by his words, Loria responds softly, "I see. Is there anything else you'd like to ask?" Sitting on her grand bed, Loria tells the little black pup, "It's all right. Well, it's getting late. Shall we call it a night?" Before closing the bedroom door with a gentle click and wishing him sweet dreams, to which Xenox replies, "You too, my lady." Tucking herself under the blankets, Loria lies awake staring into the darkness, filled with doubt as she wonders, did I really think he came looking for me because he missed me? Lyria watches the tiny black pup sleeping soundly on a plush cushion, thinking sadly to herself, Xenox just wants the family heirloom Shiro ran off with. Loria recalls a fond memory of Shiro dressed up in an adorable blue frilly gown with bows, thinking, still, he was always endlessly kind to me, before resolving, come to think of it, I'll need some things for Xenox to use while he stays at the estate, since I don't know when he'll return to his original form. With a bright, cheerful smile on her face, Loria snuggles into her pillow and decides, maybe I should go shopping tomorrow, for the first time in a while. The morning sun shines brightly over the grand white Rohan mansion, signaling the start of a brand new day. Sneaking out without your family knowing? Loria asks the little black pup standing before her. They worry a lot, she sighs, explaining that ever since she went missing for half a year, their overprotectiveness has only gotten worse. Looking incredibly worried, Loria realizes that her family already dislikes Xenox. If they ever find out he was her kidnapper, her mother would surely try to poison him and her father would kill him for sure, making it absolutely vital that they never find out the truth. Startled by a sudden sound, the tiny black puppy sits up alertly on the plush cushion, turning his head with wide yellow eyes. Holding up a stylish brown leather bag with a bright, cheerful smile, Loria happily asks him, shall we go then? Standing in the middle of a quiet alleyway, Loria casts a glowing blue magic circle beneath her feet, initiating a powerful teleportation spell. Walking along the canal, Loria looks down at the black pup nestled inside her shoulder bag and asks, are you all right? Not uncomfortable? Xenox calmly replies that he is fine and that this much is nothing, silently thinking to himself how incredibly convenient teleportation spells are. Then let's go find a good pet bag to use, Loria decides with a bright smile, while the little black pup looks on with a grumpy and unamused expression. Grinning mischievously, Loria thinks about buying a new brush to groom his fur, wondering if a ribbon would look cute, and giggling as she imagines how absolutely adorable he would look dressed up in a puppy outfit. Peering out from the shoulder bag, Xenox notes to himself that ever since he transformed into a wolf, the lady has been smiling much more, and he can tell it is neither a fake nor a forced smile. Xenox reflects on his search, remembering how he followed the energy of the fox marble all the way to her, and even used an engagement contract to get close. Yet when he secretly searched every inch of the Rohan mansion last night while she was away, he found absolutely nothing. Staring at the grand Rohan mansion, Xenox wonders if Loria and her entire family truly have nothing to do with Shiro, reasoning that if they were hiding her, they would have certainly avoided an engagement with him. Resting his head on the edge of the bag in disappointment, Xenox sighs, In the end, I'm right back where I started, prompting Laria to peer down and ask, Your Grace? Stopping in her tracks, Loria asks him with concern, Are you uncomfortable? Then, with a gentle slide, Loria reaches into the bag and carefully scoops the little black puppy out into her hands. Cradling the puppy close to her chest against a beautiful backdrop of yellow flowers, Loria beams, Should I just go around like this instead? So soft and warm. Looking lovingly into his yellow eyes, Laria tells him, When I was Shiro, Xenox used to carry me around like this. I tried copying it. I hope that's okay? Carrying her cute shopping bag decorated with a puppy paw print, Loria strolls happily through the busy city streets. Spotting a diamond-shaped wooden sign hanging ahead, Laria exclaims in surprise, Oh, a jewelry store, as she realizes they have ended up in a very busy district. Looking at a glittering red gem inside a fancy display case, Loria wonders aloud how much something like that costs, prompting the puppy in her arms to ask, Want me to buy it for you? Laria sweat drops and bluntly points out, You don't have any money, leaving the little black pup completely speechless and embarrassed. Pointing towards the street, Xenox proudly tells her to just charge everything they bought to the Classium estate, adding that it's a gift since she didn't spend that much anyway. Suddenly, a booming voice shouts from behind, You there, identify yourself, causing Loria to flinch in pure shock. Turning around, Loria sees a young man complaining to his blonde companion, grumbling that searching everyone they see completely defeats the purpose of going undercover and that he should be more aware of his high status. Gasping in disbelief as she looks at the blonde man, Loria internally cries out, Your Highness the Crown Prince? Spotting Laria, the blonde crown prince clasps his hands together with an overjoyed expression, exclaiming, Lady Rohan, perfect timing, while his stressed guard panics in the background. Rushing over to Loria, the crown prince desperately asks, Lady Rohan, have you seen Xenox recently or heard anything about him? Complaining that the Duke has been ignoring every single one of his messages. The crown prince's expression suddenly turns dead serious as he whispers, It's about Shiro, causing Xenox to look up sharply from Loria's arms. Surprised by the mention of the white fox, Loria asks, What do you mean by that? While Xenox gasps in absolute shock. When the guard frantically asks if something is wrong, the crown prince quickly waves his hand dismissively and shouts, It's nothing. As the crown prince leans in closer to whisper the secret to Laria, the little black puppy silently hops out of her arms and lands on the stone pavement. Staring at the blonde royal in utter panic, Xenox breaks into a cold sweat, wondering, No, why is the crown prince here? Looking down at the black pup, the crown prince chuckles to himself and says, No, there's no way. It can't be Xenox. Silly me. To which Loria nervously chuckles in agreement. Staring back at him with an incredibly deadpan and offended expression, the puppy silently listens as the prince scoffs at the ridiculous idea of him being a small, cute dog. Suddenly, Xenox brings up an embarrassing childhood secret, asking the prince if he remembers visiting the lake behind the palace at age 10 and seeing a girl, which instantly sends the crown prince into a panicked, screaming frenzy as he realizes the puppy is indeed Xenox. Standing near a large clock tower under the bright blue sky, the prince sweat drops and asks, How did you end up like this? To which Xenox grumpily explains that due to unavoidable circumstances, he has temporarily turned into a wolf. A wolf? The prince repeats, raising a hand to his chin as he closely examines the pup and admits that, upon closer inspection, he really does resemble a wolf. Growling fiercely with sparks flying from his eyes, the black pup demands, Answer my question, what is this business related to Shiro? Causing the prince to raise his hands and tease, Geez, so impatient. Hearing the prince mention Shiro, Xenox's eyes widen in shock as a sudden memory flashes through his mind of his human self holding the precious white fox. Left completely out of the loop, Loria stands in the middle of the decorated festival square with a thoroughly confused expression, wondering why they are talking about a dream all of a sudden. Noticing her confusion, the crown prince smiles warmly and asks, is this the first time you're hearing of this, my lady? Before explaining that it is a unique trait associated with the royal family. A beautiful legendary illustration appears depicting the magical Fox clan utilizing their mysterious sorcery. The illustration continues, explaining that while the Wolf clan is born with exceptional martial prowess, the members of the royal family who inherited the blood of the Golden Elk are born with the divine power of foresight. I've heard of that, Loria realizes. The crown prince nods, explaining that in his case it manifests as prophetic dreams, though they are rarely clear. He adds that while he isn't certain if the fox in his dream is Shiro, there are rumors that smugglers have recently been gathering rare beasts. Looking down at the black pup, the prince reveals that rumor has it there is a white fox among them, and an auction is scheduled to take place today, prompting Xenox to look up in shock and demand, "Where is it?" Looking deeply concerned, Loria asks, "Are you planning to go in person? But in your current state?" The crown prince smirks confidently and gestures toward the tiny pup, pointing out, "Isn't it actually better for infiltration?" Laria looks away anxiously, her heart racing as she thinks, "It can't be Shiro, because I'm Shiro. Could it be that Xenox will find a different fox? I have to find out what's going on." Clutching her hand over her chest with a determined expression, Loria tells herself that she must investigate, especially since she is partly responsible for Xenox ending up in his current puppy form. Looking up at her with a serious and protective gaze, the little black pup warns her, it could be dangerous. Smiling warmly down at him against a beautiful background of white roses, Loria gently replies, "So let's go together." The tiny black wolf puppy sits up alertly, looking up with wide, curious yellow eyes as he listens carefully to his surroundings. A grand carriage pulled by 4 horses rolls swiftly down a sunlit street as a voice confidently declares, "I have a good plan." Inside the carriage, Loria looks at the crown prince in surprise and asks, "His Grace?" Smiling brightly, the crown prince explains, "A black wolf is a rare species, so the smugglers will go crazy for it. And it'll be easier to search if he infiltrates the animal cages as a wolf pup." Loria holds the little puppy protectively and asks in disbelief, "How can we put him up for an illegal auction when he's so small and weak?" as the little black wolf pup silently glares in offense. Looking up at Loria with a serious expression, Xenox tells her, "It would be best to do as His Highness says, because not all the captured animals will be put up for auction." Standing at the entrance of a building, a stern guard blocks the way with his spear and demands, "Show me your invitation." Wearing a white masquerade mask, the crown prince smiles confidently and announces, "We've come to sell an item. Please call the auctioneer." The guard dismissively responds, "We don't take peddlers," prompting the crown prince to warn him with a smirk, "You'll regret it. Do you know what kind of rare beast we've brought?" Gesturing grandly with a charming smile, the crown prince proudly declares, "A first on this continent." Loria pulls back her hood and presents the tiny black puppy as the crown prince dramatically announces, "The long-extinct black wolf." Looking completely astonished, the auction appraiser gasps in awe and exclaims, "Oh my!" The appraiser closely examines the pup, marveling at its glossy black fur and golden eyes that shine brightly like the sun. The appraiser is absolutely captivated by the rare find, crying out, "And such a young one at that!" while the little pup glares back with an unamused expression. Kneeling down eagerly with sparkles in his eyes, the appraiser rubs his hands together and asks, "What's your price?" Before the crown prince can finish saying 50 milli, Loria steps forward with a determined expression and firmly demands 100 million. Left sweating in absolute disbelief at her bold demand, the crown prince internally screams, "Huh? 100 million? Chuckling to himself, the appraiser says, 100 million? My, it seems the young lady doesn't know how the world works," before offering 120 million. Looking highly annoyed, Loria retorts, "Are you kidding me? Your opinion will change once you see what he can do. You'd better decide quickly." Hearing her cue, the little black puppy steps forward obediently on the pavement. Loria holds out her hand and says paw, and the puppy immediately places his tiny black paw onto her hand. Loria commands, "Turn around," and the pup spins in a circle, leaving the crown prince looking completely bewildered by the trick. Beaming with joy, Loria says, "Now let me hold you," and the puppy happily leaps right into her warm, open arms. Cradling the puppy close, Loria and the pup stare down the appraiser with incredibly deadpan, glittering expressions. From inside the building, the appraiser stammers in defeat. "How much did you say?" While Loria cheerfully replies, "The price just went up to 150 million. Wiping the sweat from his brow, the frantic appraiser quickly agrees. 150 million, got it. As Loria raises her hand to add, "And one more thing." Loria lets out a bright, cheerful laugh under her hood, thoroughly pleased with the outcome of her successful negotiation. Inside the dark and grand halls of the venue, a booming voice echoes, "Welcome to the capital's finest rare animal auction." Walking beside her into the venue, the crown prince sweat drops and whispers, "You have a surprisingly scary side to you, my lady." The host, Black, welcomes the crowd from under a spotlight as Loria sits anxiously in the audience, silently thinking to herself, "I wonder if the Grand Duke is all right." The Crown Prince reassures her, "You're probably the only person on this continent who worries about Xenox, my lady." Loria looks down quietly, thinking, "I wonder if he's found what he's looking for by now." No, Shiro isn't here. Feeling a sense of quiet determination, Laria keeps her thoughts hidden, thinking, but I held my tongue. Deep down in the dark, torch-lit dungeons of the auction house, heavy footsteps echo through the corridors as someone asks, "The fox?" One smuggler explains, "I sent it to the training room. It was being too disobedient." The other responds, "The master repeatedly warned us not to let its value as a product drop," before a sudden, heavy thwack knocks him out. The smuggler gasps in shock, "Hey, what the?" as his companion suddenly collapses unconscious onto the stone floor. Inside the dim cell, a sudden, powerful crash echoes as the thick iron bars of a cage are violently shattered and torn open. Back in the auction room, the host presents the next lot as the Crown Prince comments, even a nationally protected species is up. A white bird inside a cage is presented on stage, prompting Laria to watch closely and think, not Xenox yet? I guess they're saving him for last. Suddenly, a cold shiver runs down Loria's spine, and her eyes widen in pure shock as she senses a powerful magical presence, thinking, this energy. Scanning the crowd, she spots a hooded figure with glowing red eyes and realizes in horror, brainwashing magic. Staring at the sinister red glow of the caster's eyes, Laria's heart races as she recognizes the forbidden spell, thinking, it's a mind control spell. When the Crown Prince asks in concern, Lady Rohan, Laria quickly warns him, don't talk to me right now, as she silently analyzes the invisible formula, wondering, I cast a spell so that a normal person can't see the formula. Who in the world could it be? Reaching beneath her cloak, Laria holds up a glittering magical crystal and thanks, first, the mind control spell. With a powerful wave of her hand, a bright blue magical wind sweeps through the hall, directly disrupting the dark caster's spell. The caster gasps in confusion as their spell breaks, while Laria whispers to the prince, there's a sorcerer in the auction house using a forbidden spell. The prince asks in shock, what? How would you know something like that, my lady? While Laria observes, the magical energy is scattering. Watching the dark red energy float away, Laria notes, it's returning to its caster, and firmly resolves, as if I'd let you get away, as she grabs the magical thread with her glowing blue hand. Laria suddenly stands up and says, I'll be right back, leaving the Crown Prince to call out in panic, my lady? Realizing their spell has been countered, the dark sorcerer turns and flees down the dark hallway as fast as they can. Gritting their teeth in sheer frustration, the cloaked figure curses under their breath as they make their escape. The frustrated caster fumes inwardly, thinking to themselves in anger, it was a good chance to gather sacrifices. Sneaking around the dark corner of the auction house, the mysterious red-hooded sorcerer thinks to himself, I can't believe there was a sorcerer at the auction house. Suddenly, glowing chains of blue light erupt from the cobblestone street with a sharp rattle, blocking the fleeing sorcerer's path. Realizing he is being cornered, the shocked sorcerer gasps, a pursuer, and quickly unleashes a flurry of sharp, dark red magical daggers in retaliation. Emerging from the shadows, Laria stands her ground and summons a bright blue magic circle to deflect the incoming red projectiles. Laria looks at the red-hooded figure with a grim expression, analyzing his energy. She thinks, ominous magical energy, and mind control too. It feels similar to what I saw at the Classium estate. Was this the person who planted the spell back then? The sorcerer stands surrounded by a red magic circle, holding a jagged, glowing red blade as Laria warns herself. In any case, my opponent is using a forbidden spell. Reaching into her pouch filled with brilliant, glowing magical stones, Laria wonders with concern, will the jewels I brought be enough? With a swift step forward, the sorcerer slashes at Laria, but she holds her hand out to block his powerful strike with her blue magical barrier. Hearing the cloaked sorcerer mutter, how irritating, Laria is taken aback by his voice, thinking, the voice of a middle-aged man. Laria summons multiple magical swords around her to prepare for a serious battle, thinking, the more I drag this out, the worse it'll be for me. Gathering her strength, Laria prepares a counterattack and chants under her breath, in that case, as bright cosmic energy swirls around her. Her blue eyes glow with intense determination as she resolves, I'll gather as much magical energy as I can and attack all at once. The sorcerer grinds his teeth behind his red hood, looking highly annoyed by her resilience. He raises his hand to cast a dark red spell, causing crackles of red lightning to split the air. Swiftly countering his move, Laria summons glowing blue chains that wrap tightly around him as she demands, where do you think you're going? Feeling the tight restraint, the sorcerer scowls in frustration and mutters, Ch, as the blue chains begin to fracture under his dark power. The sorcerer pulls out a flask of swirling crimson liquid, prompting Laria to gasp. What is that? An attack potion? No, that's As the dark red liquid spills onto the street, Loria watches in horror and asks, "Blood?" while black smoke begins to rise from the pavement. A sinister, dark red snake of pure magical energy begins to slither rapidly across the ground towards Loria. The dark spell strikes Loria's defense with a sharp hiss, forcing her backward as she cries out in shock. Sensing the immense danger, Loria looks at the massive, glowing red magic circle expanding over the city and thinks, "What is this? This immense magical energy? Don't tell me, is he planning to blow this entire area away?" Panicking for the safety of the civilians, Loria dashes forward and screams, "No, there are still people at the auction house." Struggling against the overwhelming dark pressure, Loria groans in pain, as red magical energy lashes out around her. Channeling all her magic into a massive shield to suppress the activation, Loria desperately thinks, "I have to stop him before the spell is complete." With a brilliant flash, Loria shatters her magic crystal, releasing a powerful wave of pure white energy to counter and shatter the dark spell. A quiet street scene is shown as the lingering remnants of the magical shockwave safely dissipate into the night air. Loria stands alone in the empty alleyway, looking around as the magic fades and wondering, did he get away? Sweating and catching her breath, Loria realizes the toll the battle took on her, thinking, "This is the first time I've ever used this much magical energy." Close up on Loria's wide, brilliant blue eyes as she processes the terrifying encounter. Looking down at her trembling hands, she thinks in awe of her mysterious opponent. That person? Standing in the quiet street, Loria stares into the distance and asks herself, just who was he? Meanwhile, a secret stone door glowing with a red aura slowly creaks open in the hidden depths of the facility. Stumbling through the hidden passageway, the injured sorcerer clutches his side in pain as he retreats. Grinding his teeth in absolute fury, the sorcerer's sharp fangs are bared beneath his hood. He slams his fist against the stone wall in frustration, screaming, "Damn it!" Fuming over his defeat, the sorcerer wonders, where in the world did someone that skilled come from? And it was such a good opportunity. Recalling the brilliant magical display, he thinks, that pure white energy was definitely... He quickly shakes his head to dismiss the impossible thought, reasoning, "No, there's no way that cowardly fox would have gone that far." The sorcerer sheds his cloak and burns it to ashes, revealing his red hair as he mutters, "The plan is still intact. It has just been delayed a little." Walking down the corridor, the red-haired sorcerer is greeted by a waiting subordinate who says, "You've arrived." The subordinate bows respectfully and says, "Chief." The red-haired man, Venetian Hashir, chief of the Sorcery Bureau, glances back with glowing red eyes and coldly notes, "It seems." Back in the grand auction hall, the booming voice of the host announces, "All right, this is our final item." Under the bright spotlight, the enthusiastic auctioneer spreads his arms wide and declares, "The highlight of today's auction." Hurrying back to their private box, Loria is greeted by the crown prince, who smiles and says, "Ah, my lady, you made it just in time. It's Xenox's turn now." Relieved to have slipped back in unnoticed, Loria looks at him and thinks, "Thankfully, he's not asking where I've been. I don't know what he's thinking, but..." The auctioneer smiles brightly at the crowd, teasing, "I was quite surprised when I found this myself. You'll all be shocked as well." The excited audience begins to whisper among themselves as the auctioneer boasts, "A rare beast that has never been discovered until now. It's even a young one, so cute it's captivating just by breathing." The presentation screen behind the auctioneer lights up with the text, "The Black Wolf with Golden Eyes, once thought to exist only in legends." The camera pans up to the grand chandelier as the auctioneer builds the suspense. The starting bid for it will be... Chibi Loria stands frozen in comical shock as she hears the price, internally screaming, "200 million? You bought him for 150 million?" Standing in his private booth, the crown prince beams with a cheerful, mask-wearing smile, appearing thoroughly amused by the unfolding events. On stage under the spotlight, the dramatic auctioneer gestures widely to the crowd, announcing, "Now we'll reveal the item." The crown prince turns to Loria and asks, "By the way, my lady, do you know Xenox's nicknames?" Confused, Loria repeats, "Nicknames?" as she mentally recalls his terrifying reputations like the Monster Grand Duke who devours beastmen, Rabid, and Mad Dog, before sweat-droppingly replying, "Well, there are so many," prompting the prince to respond with a smirk. "Is that so?" Adjusting his mask, the crown prince chuckles, "Just as you said, my lady Xenox has countless nicknames." The narrator reveals that among all of his titles, the illegal animal smugglers in the underworld refer to Xenox by one terrifying name. As Loria looks on with wide, shocked blue eyes, a dark memory of Xenox violently choking a terrified smuggler flashes before her mind. Lifting the bruised and beaten smuggler effortlessly into the air, Xenox embodies his most fearsome moniker, the Executioner. Glaring with fierce, glowing golden eyes, Xenox's relentless pursuit is described as the narrator explains that he wiped out every animal smuggler in the capital just to find Shiro. Back in the present, a smuggler screams in absolute terror as Grand Duke Clasium stands tall on the stage over his defeated comrades, causing the audience to realize his true identity. Staring in utter shock, the Crown Prince gasps, "When did he turn back into a person?" While Loria nervously thinks, "This is bad. It looks like he couldn't find the fox." Looking at the chaotic scene on stage as guards aim their spears at the Grand Duke, Loria anxiously wonders to herself, can the premonition change? The Crown Prince slowly removes his elegant mask, revealing a striking, self-assured expression beneath. Terrified guards desperately point their spears at Xenox, trembling as they yell, "Stop, don't move!" With a cold, unbothered expression, Xenox effortlessly grabs and shatters the guard's wooden spear with his bare hand, sending the guard into a screaming panic. The panicking auctioneer runs for his life, sweating profusely as he screams, I have to get away, while a massive, destructive sound wave echoes through the hall. Seeing Xenox's terrifying wrath, the Crown Prince smiles nervously and thinks, he's really pissed off. I need to get out of here fast, while Laria watches him dryly, thinking, and this man is going to be the Emperor someday? Suddenly, the heavy double doors are slammed open as Imperial guards burst into the room, shouting, "Everyone, stop!" The blue-haired guard captain commands the room with a stern glare, declaring, "In the name of the Imperial family, we will punish the illegal auction." The captain freezes in utter confusion as the wealthy auction participants throw themselves to the floor, weeping, "Please arrest me. It's been my lifelong dream to go to prison." Xenox slowly walks down the steps, his heavy footsteps cracking the stone floor as he steps right over the unconscious guards he just defeated. Xenox's eyes glow with an ominous gold light as the Crown Prince nervously contemplates. Ugh, it'll be a problem if Xenox kills them all. I haven't secured the list of auction participants yet. Should I stop him? A sudden, heavy thumping sensation echoes in Loria's chest as her eyes stretch wide, catching a sudden shift in her own magic. As a dark, chaotic energy begins to swirl around her, Loria thinks in rising panic, this feeling is... Looking down at her trembling hands as a bright blue magical orb floats before her, Loria realizes in horror, it's the same feeling I get when I turn into a fox. Desperate to escape before she transforms, Loria pulls her hood down and exclaims, I have to go. I'll leave the rest to you, leaving the Crown Prince thoroughly confused as she gasps in pain. Running frantically through the empty halls, Loria thinks in disbelief, I thought I would never turn into a fox again. Why all of a sudden? Recalling the Crown Prince's warning that the future doesn't change, Loria dashes out into the dark streets, frantically thinking, could it be? First, I have to hide myself somehow. With a sudden puff of bright magical light, Loria lets out a high-pitched cry as she transforms completely back into her fluffy white fox form midair. Landing on the ground, the adorable white fox desperately drags her heavy cloak with her teeth, sweating as she thinks, what do I do? Before a familiar voice suddenly calls out from the shadows, Laria? Gasping in shock, Fox Luria looks up to see Soleik standing in the alleyway. As he stares at her in utter disbelief and asks, Soleik, you turned into a fox? No, how? Frantic, Fox Loria squeaks in alarm. Why is he here? More importantly, now's not the time for this. I have to hide quickly. While Soleik gently picks her up and observes, no matter how I look at it, you're a perfect fox. A potion wouldn't be this accurate. Soleik holds the tiny white beast up in the air, staring at her in silent wonder as she flails her paws nervously. Prodding the sweat-dropping little fox, Chibi Soleik asks, can you not talk? Prompting Loria to whimper out a soft, defeated squeak. Suddenly, Soleik hears a heavy, approaching sound and quickly ducks behind a large tree, whispering Xenox's name in alarm. Xenox walks down the street surrounded by a dark aura while the Crown Prince and Imperial guards hurry behind him, with the prince calling out, calm down, we haven't even searched this whole place yet. Glaring coldly into the dark night, Xenox's golden eyes gleam with a deadly intensity. Sensing an overwhelming, bloodthirsty presence, the guard captain gasps and flinches in sudden fear. Without warning, Xenox abruptly whips his head toward the alleyway where Soleik is hiding. As the Crown Prince rushes up and asks, what's wrong all of a sudden? Xenox coldly mutters a single name, Shiro. Xenox begins walking with steady, menacing strides, prompting the prince to think in dread, wait, is he right now? Holding the trembling white fox behind the tree trunk, Soleik's sweat drops as Laria senses Xenox's approach, thinking, I think he's coming this way. Terrified for their safety, the small white fox looks up at Soleik and screams, hey, let's run! In a flash of blinding speed, a powerful hand draws a sharp steel blade from its scabbard. With a swift and devastating slash, Xanox cuts the massive tree cleanly in half, leaving Soul-like frozen in shock as the top of the tree slides away. The heavy tree trunk crashes to the ground with a loud thud, forcing Soul-like to hold the trembling fox close as he plasters on a tense, sweating smile. Staring in complete disbelief at the sliced tree, the Crown Prince screams, "Are you insane?" while sweat-droppingly wondering, "When did he get hold of my sword?" Xenox turns his cold, unwavering gaze directly toward the hidden pair, his golden eyes burning with anger. Locking his eyes onto the fluffy white beast, Xenox quietly repeats, "Shiro," as Soul-like flinches nervously under the heavy pressure. Surrounded by a terrifying, suffocating red aura, Xenox steps forward and demands in a dark, low voice, "Hey, take your hand off her, now." Backing away with a sweat-dropped, nervous grin, Soul-like holds the fox protectively and placates, "Oh, dear person, no, you've got the wrong fox." Standing face-to-face in the alleyway, Soul-like holds the small white fox and tries to bluff his way out, asserting, "This fox is mine, I've raised her since she was a cub," prompting Xenox to skeptically ask, "Yours, you say?" before Soul-like nervously confirms, "Yes, that's correct." Desperately trying to diffuse the high-stakes tension, Soul-like flashes a bright, nervous smile as he explains, "I wanted to help her make a friend," while the tiny white fox looks up at him with a sweat-dropped, thoroughly confused expression. Sweating profusely as Xenox lets out a heavy sigh, Chibi Soul-like continues his absurd excuse, saying, "I figured it'd be better if she chose her own friends," leaving the Grand Duke completely unimpressed. Draping a dramatic floral background around himself, Soul-like tightly hugs the small beast and proclaims, "This one, she's like my own life," causing the poor white fox to squeak out a startled, breathless, "Eep!" Sensing the terrifying atmosphere growing heavier, Soul-like holds the fox up protectively and anxiously asks, "Gasp, I'm sorry, are you okay?" Trembling in Soul-like's arms, the white fox looks on with wide, worried blue eyes, internally panicking as she thinks, "There must be countless white foxes. How did he recognize her at a glance?" Standing near the severed tree trunk under the watchful gaze of the Crown Prince, Xenox remains completely unmoved as Loria anxiously wonders what to do, knowing she can't even return the fox marble right now. Xenox points the sharp tip of his sword directly at the ground with a cold, metallic ring, demandingly asking Soul-like, "Is that all you have to say?" Sweat dropping as he stares at the shining blade, Soul-like gulps in absolute terror, internally crying, "I'm gonna die." Surrounded by a suffocating dark purple aura, Xenox takes slow, menacing steps forward, convincing Soul-like that the Grand Duke truly intends to kill him right then and there. Xenox's golden eyes gleam with a lethal intensity, while Soul-like holds the trembling white fox as close to his chest as possible, desperately hoping to shield her. Suddenly, Xenox freezes mid-step, his cold gaze faltering in surprise as he senses something unexpected. Staring into the quiet, dark night sky over the city rooftops, Xenox softly mutters a single name, "Shiro." A sudden memory of their past flashes before them, recalling the poignant moment Xenox looked down with a soft, melancholy expression and gently asked, "Are you afraid of me?" Seizing the sudden distraction, Soul-like quickly pulls a glowing pink potion from his coat, urgently whispering, "Now, let's run," as the white fox gasps in preparation. Smashing the bottle on the ground, Soul-like activates a massive, glowing blue magic circle adorned with a bright, luminous clock emblem. Panicking as a bright burst of magical energy envelops the alleyway, Xenox desperately lunges forward, screaming, "Shiro!" A brilliant flash of light swirls into the sky, leaving Xenox standing alone in front of the empty, glowing magic circle as the pair vanishes without a trace. The Crown Prince and the Imperial Guards watch from behind in stunned, speechless silence as Xenox stands frozen, his back turned to them. Staring down at the empty, shattered glass vial left behind on the cracked pavement, Xenox coldly notes, "This is..." The presentation title card reveals the title screen for Chapter 23 of the manhwa, as a soft, sparkling trail of blue light drifts through a cozy, dimly lit wooden room. Having successfully teleported to a safe house, Soul-like collapses heavily into a wooden chair, clutching his face in exhaustion as he groans, "Whew, thought I was dead for sure." The exhausted white fox plops onto her belly on the wooden table as Soul-like sighs, "I must have 3 lives. Pretty sure I used 2 of them today. Good thing I brought that elixir you gave me." Staring blankly at the table, Laria remembers Xenox's vulnerable face when he asked if she was afraid of him, softly thinking, "I've never seen that expression before." Resting his chin on his gloved hand, Soul-like curiously asks, So when are you going back to your original form? Prompting the tiny white fox to let out a high-pitched, frustrated squeak. Surrounded by beautiful pink roses and cherry designs, Loria shifts uncomfortably in her fox form, thinking to herself, I don't really know. Solike blushes brightly, covering his mouth as he melts from how incredibly adorable Loria looks in her fluffy fox form. Looking up at the ceiling chandelier, Solike sighs dreamily. Now I get why the Grand Duke's obsessed with this fox. So cute. While Chibi Laria glares at him, nervously thinking, is this guy planning to turn me into Xenox for the reward? Solike leans in close to the little beast, asking with a puzzled expression, but still, what do foxes eat? Is anything okay? Maybe I should start with water. Solike steps out of the room to fetch some water, leaving the fluffy white fox sitting alone on the edge of the wooden table. Left with her thoughts, Loria paces around the tabletop, thinking, anyway, I need to figure out why I suddenly transformed into a fox. Loria recalls her intense magical output in the past, anxiously pondering, if this happens again, I'll be in serious trouble, especially if it happens in front of Xenox. Could it be recoil from using too much magic that time? If so, how do I turn back? Feeling completely overwhelmed, the small white fox rolls onto her back, kicking her paws in frustration as she groans, I don't know, my head's a mess. Suddenly, a sparkling blue magical light begins to swirl around Laria's small body, prompting her to think in surprise, this feeling. Somehow, I think I'm about to transform back. A brilliant, blinding flash of blue magical energy suddenly illuminates the entire ceiling of the quiet wooden cabin. Surrounded by a majestic vortex of blue light and sparkling stars, Loria's human form begins to materialize in midair. Standing safely on the wooden floor in her human form, Laria wears a simple blue dress as she sighs, first I suddenly turn into a fox, and now I'm suddenly back? Collapsing exhaustedly onto the soft cushions of the couch, Loria rests her head back, thinking, if it weren't for the fox marble, I wouldn't have run away like that. Loria's striking blue eyes look down in deep contemplation as she softly thinks to herself, I can't stop thinking about it. Suddenly, Solike returns to the room carrying a large wooden mug, freezing in utter shock as he stammers, Laria, you're the fox the Duke's been searching for, aren't you? Sitting down at the table across from her, Solike smiles warmly, prompting Loria to anxiously wonder, is it okay to just admit it? Chibi Laria slumps her shoulders in defeat, realizing, no, I already revealed myself. There's no point in making excuses now. Gaining a look of quiet resolve, Loria focuses on her next step, thinking, more importantly, I need Solike's help. Looking down at her clasped hands, Loria takes a deep breath and says, yes, here's what happened. After listening to her story, Solike leans back in his chair and comments, you got away nicely. How can you live with someone who terrifies you? Looking down at her wooden mug, Laria softly replies, he was kind to me, prompting Solike to ask, are you taking his side? Which leaves her momentarily speechless. Solike smiles knowingly as he rests his chin on his gloved hand, prompting Loria to ask, by the way, why were you there in the first place? To which he replies, information gathering. Treasures are usually hidden in the shadows. Loria glares at Solike while taking a sip from her mug as he casually boasts, thanks to that, I got some very valuable intel, warning him, just so you know, don't even think about selling out my secret, which he smoothly dismisses with a simple, I won't. Setting her wooden mug down on the table, Loria looks at him with a serious expression and says, information gathering, huh? Oh, by the way, can you get me the list of people who visited the auction today? Solike looks at her with mild surprise, replying, it won't be hard, but I can't guarantee it'll be complete. Why? Prompting Loria to firmly declare, I'm looking for someone. Loria sits nervously at the table, clutching her fingers as she contemplates the terrifying reality that someone powerful is using forbidden magic. In his private study, the red-haired nobleman sits in absolute silence, deeply buried in dark thoughts. His sharp, crimson eyes glow with a lethal intensity as he silently fumes with rage. Enveloped by a suffocating dark pressure, the question echoes menacingly, who was it? Not long ago, a sudden cough of blood splattered across the stone floor as a shaman groaned in intense agony. Standing before his master, the weakened shaman clutches his throat in pain, struggling to speak as he reports the sudden disaster. The red-haired lord turns around in complete disbelief, demanding to know how the curse placed on the Colosseum estate could possibly be broken. The trembling shaman explains that a powerful, independent group of shamans must be responsible, as no ordinary spell could easily shatter a curse they spent so long crafting. The lord narrows his eyes as he wonders, has the Grand Duke of Classium caught on? He reflects on how forbidden spells using blood and flesh are extremely powerful, requiring a shaman to risk their very life just to break even a minor one. He recalls that no shamans from the official Bureau of Sorcery were dispatched, meaning a highly capable, unaffiliated group must have accomplished the feat without the Bureau's knowledge. Staring into space, he realizes with growing dread that whoever broke the spell shattered his forbidden magic far too easily. He wonders if a single, incredibly skilled individual could have destroyed the Classium curse completely on their own, even though the Bureau has absolutely no records of such a person. Letting out a heavy sigh, he turns his attention back to his writing desk. He reasons that after spending an entire year surrounded by such intense sorcery, the Grand Duke of Classium must have been affected to some degree. But his eyes flash with cold determination as he mutters, "But that alone isn't enough." With heavy, resolute steps, the red-haired lord begins walking down the dark staircase of his manor. He knows that the puppet master behind this plot wants to control Xenox completely and will never tolerate the slightest deviation from his plans. He shudders slightly at the thought of that unsettling, shadowy figure who treats everyone like mere chess pieces on a board. Deciding he cannot wait any longer, the nobleman looks at the parchment and mutters, "I suppose I should make contact." Dipping his quill in ink, he quickly writes a secret message, thinking to himself that once he gets his hands on the fox marble, his ties with that terrifying individual will finally be over. The written letter begins to spark with an eerie red light, sending his message across space as he anxiously waits for a swift reply. Suddenly, a glowing red reply burns itself onto the paper, warning him with a chilling message, "I'll handle it personally." The next morning, bright sunlight bathes the beautiful white mansion as Loria lies exhaustedly on her bed, letting out a long, weary sigh. Staring up at the ceiling, Laria's striking blue eyes shimmer with deep contemplation as she tries to process everything. Her maid enters the room carrying a cute bag decorated with paw prints, explaining that the imperial household sent it because it was something Loria might have forgotten. Loria stares blankly at the adorable bag, completely speechless. Shaking her head, Loria reminds herself that she shouldn't be wasting time thinking about Xenox right now. Lying back down, she holds her hand up, deeply puzzled by why she suddenly transformed into a white fox in the first place. Staring at her palm, she wonders if the sudden transformation was some kind of recoil from overusing her sorcery. A gentle knock on the door interrupts her thoughts, and the maid asks if she is awake, prompting Loria to sit up and confirm that she is. The maid politely asks if she would like breakfast brought up, but Loria decides she will eat downstairs in the dining room instead. Hearing this, the cute chibi maid looks incredibly disappointed and slumped, whimpering that she will go prepare the meal. Sensing a strange atmosphere, Loria raises her hand in confusion, wondering what is going on. Stepping out of her room, Loria spots a small white envelope lying on the floor and curiously asks, "What's this?" Picking it up, she opens the card to find a simple handwritten note that reads, "I'm sorry." Loria's eyes widen in recognition as she stares at the distinct handwriting on the paper. Looking up, she notices a white-haired young man nervously peeking through the doorway, watching her with a guilty expression. The young man's green eyes brim with tears as he sniffles, looking completely remorseful for his past actions. Feeling her heart soften, Loria flashes a bright smile and announces she will eat in the dining room, prompting the maid to cheer happily, though Loria sheepishly notes she should probably change out of her nightgown first. The chibi maid enthusiastically tries to pull her along, causing a flustered Loria to gasp, "You want me to eat in my nightgown?" After dressing in a lovely blue gown decorated with flowers, Loria sits gracefully at the dining table, though she remains quiet. Her companions smile warmly at her, with one commenting that it feels like it has been a very long time since they last saw her. Looking down at the massive, empty table, Loria spots a single red apple placed on a small plate in front of her as the tearful young man sits slumped in shame. The red apple sits perfectly in the center of the white plate, sparkling under the dining room lights as a silent symbol of apology. Chibi Loria looks over at the tearful boy and asks, "Did you bring the apple to apologize?" To which he sheepishly nods, "Uh-huh." Seeing him look so incredibly pathetic and remorseful, Loria smiles softly to herself, finding it quite touching and deciding it might be time to forgive him. Looking him in the eye, Loria asks, "You won't bring harm to his grace, will you?" To which the boy desperately promises, "I promise, I really mean it." Tears streaming down his face, the young man confesses that he thought she was avoiding them, which made him feel incredibly hurt and abandoned. Sweating nervously, Loria realizes he was just acting out because of his misunderstandings about the Grand Duke, as the boy sniffles and softly apologizes once more. Solike looks deeply concerned, resting his gloved chin on his hand as he contemplates the situation. Loria stares back with a soft, slightly wistful expression, her bright blue eyes shimmering with emotion. You promise not to do anything like that again. An awkward silence fills the dining room as the family eats together, with only the quiet clinking of silverware breaking the tension. Laria, about the engagement? I'm not opposed to it at all. But since you two haven't known each other for long, it feels a bit too soon. At the same time, I can't allow your engagement to be treated carelessly. I understand, Mother. I'll try to delay it as much as possible. Hearing Loria's cooperative response, the older woman and the young man smile with relief. The beautiful white mansion stands peaceful and magnificent under the bright morning sun. In a dimly lit room, Soleik sits quietly at his desk, studying a document in the warm glow of candlelight. He's someone who uses forbidden magic. Forbidden magic, you say? Do you have even the slightest idea who it could be? No, but I can roughly guess the purpose of his visit to the auction house. Are there any other details you remember? His voice sounded like that of a middle-aged man, and he was bigger than me. It's possible he used a potion that altered his appearance or voice, but can you find him? What do you take me for? Don't worry, I'll do my best to track him down. Forbidden magic always comes with a price. That's something I know better than anyone. Soleik leans back in his chair, letting out a weary sigh as the weight of his thoughts settles in. He thoroughly concealed his identity. Even so, the fact that he personally went to the auction house was far too troublesome. There must have been other, safer ways to secure a sacrifice. My opponent seems unwilling to use those close to him as sacrifices for forbidden magic. If someone around him were to disappear, suspicion would fall on him, meaning he's likely in a position where he would be questioned, someone whose profession makes it difficult to be absent for a long time, even under a disguise. And that narrows it down to foxkin capable of using sorcery. It feels like he's preparing something. Helden. Soleik stares at his reflection, feeling a painful ache in his chest as painful memories resurface. Whoever you are, whatever your purpose may be, don't think I'll simply let you have your way. A week has passed since I went to the illegal auction house. I sent letters filled with excuses to Xenox and His Highness the Crown Prince about why I returned early that day, but no reply has come. Laria sits quietly at her desk, holding her feather quill as she worries over the lack of replies. If Brother were to find out about my secret outing, what? Where did you go? With whom? Why? And how? No doubt it was the Crown Prince again. Ugh, just thinking about his reaction makes me shudder. And yet, strangely, nothing has happened. What about the prophecy? Will it still come to pass someday, just not this time? Somehow, I can't shake off this ominous feeling. Ugh, I can't stand this frustration any longer. I'm going out right now. Yes, my lady. Accompanied by her loyal knight guard, Loria visits a local apothecary to browse through shelves of potions and ingredients. An emergency teleportation potion for Soleik, since I used mine during the auction affair. And the other ingredients I'll need? Found them. Suddenly, a mysterious hand gently taps her from behind. Sienna? To meet you here? It's quite a surprising coincidence. Since I grabbed it first, naturally you'll yield, won't you? Yes, Our Lady grabbed it first. With my excellent eyesight, I saw everything. You were at least 2 seconds too late. You insolent. Loria asks the shopkeeper at the counter, by any chance, do you have more stock of blue fire coral? While a chaotic noise of arguing echoes in the background. The shopkeeper scratches his head nervously and replies, oh, not yet, since it's not harvesting season. It'll probably arrive in about 3 months. Stepping closer, a woman in elegant red shoes asks, but may I ask, my lady, what purpose you have for blue fire coral? Wearing a large red hat, Sienna remarks, that's usually used for potions of intermediate level or higher. Are you implying that someone who can't even make potions shouldn't bother with it? That's what you mean, isn't it? Laria confidently responds, I intend to make a potion, keeping in mind that among sorcerers, only a select few are truly capable of potion making. Surprised by the declaration, Sienna asks, can you make potions? Loria smiles and says, well, yes, thinking to herself that if even Soleik praises her skill, it cannot be too terrible. Looking at the apothecary shelf containing only one remaining ingredient, the shopkeeper wonders, what shall we do? There are 2 who need it, but only 1 ingredient. Sienna smiles playfully and suggests, how about we let the shopkeeper decide fairly, leaving the poor shopkeeper completely flustered as he stammers, what? Me? Sweating nervously under the pressure, the shopkeeper suggests, oh, then perhaps I should go with whoever came first, as Landria looks on in surprise. Sienna elegantly opens her red fan and adds, please don't feel pressured, we'll respect whomever you choose. Sienna continues to sway the shopkeeper, saying, "There aren't many shops near the Sorcery Bureau that sell ingredients of this quality. I'm even thinking of recommending this place to my colleagues once I return," prompting Loria to think how petty she is being. Surrounded by a golden aura of wealth and coins, Sienna stands proudly as the shopkeeper realizes she is his ultimate patron, while Chibi Loria despairs over the power of money. Defeated by the situation, Loria lets out a bright, good-natured laugh. Sienna looks at her and asks, "Are you certain about that? Since you've graciously yielded, I'd like to repay the favor," while Loria secretly hopes Sienna will yield to her next time. Loria's dog-eared guard whispers, "Our lady is far too generous," prompting Loria to quickly tell him to be quiet. Loria's bright blue eye narrows with keen observation as she continues to watch Sienna walk away. Loria watches Sienna leave, wondering what kind of potion she is trying to make as she glances at the ingredients inside Sienna's basket. Staring at the combination of items, Loria suddenly blurts out, "A potion that turns hair golden?" causing Sienna to freeze in absolute shock. Turning back with a tense and startled expression, Sienna demands, "How do you know about that?" Sienna is deeply unsettled, wondering how Loria figured out exactly what kind of potion she was making just by looking at the ingredients. Looking at Loria with newfound respect and suspicion, Sienna wonders if the young lady is truly that skilled. Loria casually comments, "It'll probably fail," prompting an indignant Sienna to ask, "What makes you say that?" Loria explains, "You can use volcanic herb, but it makes the color muddy, so you'll end up with dirty blonde," leaving Sienna completely speechless. With her purchase complete, Loria waves a friendly goodbye as she exits the shop with her loyal guard. Sienna stands frozen in the middle of the shop, surrounded by a dramatic, swirling aura of shock and disbelief. Looking down at her ingredients, Sienna mutters, "Salsali grass? That's an ingredient I never would have thought of," before fiercely denying it, thinking there is no way she could be wrong. Pledging her fist, Sienna vows, "Just wait, I'll prove that I can successfully make the potion using volcanic herb." Outside the shop, Loria pulls her hood over her head and notes, "Good, I've bought everything I need, and I've replenished my gemstones, so lastly..." Pointing to the carriage, Loria instructs her guard, "Wait here," to which he loudly protests, "What? I'm coming too." Loria adjusts her hood and insists, "It'll only take a minute. I don't want to cause any unnecessary commotion." Looking incredibly pathetic and teary-eyed, the guard sniffles and says, "About earlier? I've been reflecting on that too," but Loria gently tells him she will be right back. Determined to be useful, the guard promises, "I'll keep an eye on everyone who comes out instead," as Loria reluctantly agrees. Walking into a grand building, Loria smiles to herself and thinks, "Rodette really is so overprotective. I'm just going to the bank. It's not like anything's going to happen." But just as Loria smiles, a sudden, terrifying scream rings through the hall. Masked robbers clad in black cloaks burst into the bank, pointing their swords and shouting, "Everybody, hands up! Anyone who moves gets cut down." Outside the bank, the guard notices the commotion and panics, screaming, "Miss!" Hiding behind a pillar, Loria observes the situation and reasons, "At first glance, there don't seem to be that many armed robbers, but considering how quiet the guards are..." Loria continues to analyze the threat, concluding, "They must have already taken the bank staff hostage outside." Clutching her magical pink crystal, Loria ponders her options. "I'd rather avoid drawing attention if possible. What should I do? I'll watch for now and step in when the timing is right." The main robber walks up to the trembling bank manager and barks, "Hey, you!" The robber points his sharp blade at the manager's throat and commands, "Open the vault door right now," forcing the terrified manager to stammer, "Okay, I'll do whatever you say." Observing the escalation, Loria prepares to act, thinking, "Right now, huh?" Suddenly, a calm, commanding voice rings out from the crowd, "Please step back." Striding forward in her elegant red gown, Sienna grabs everyone's attention as the bank staff whisper in shock, "Wait, is that?" The hostages cheer in relief, crying, "Lady Sienna! Oh, we're saved!" While Loria looks on in surprise, thinking, "Huh, Sienna?" Peeking from behind the pillar, Loria decides, if it's Sienna, maybe I don't need to get involved at all, while the robber glares at Sienna, wondering if she has gone insane from fear. Angered by her interference, the robber lunges forward with his sword, shouting, "If you're that eager to die, I'll gladly send you off myself." With absolute composure, Sienna unleashes her magic, creating a brilliant red magic circle that blasts the attacking robber backwards with a painful scream. Seeing their comrade easily defeated, another cloaked figure stands by the entrance and clicks his tongue, muttering, "Ch, so there was a sorcerer among them." If you quietly withdraw now, I won't hold you heavily accountable, Sienna warns, standing confidently in her elegant red gown. What a joke, the cloaked sorcerer sneers, summoning a glowing blue magic circle to launch his counterattack. Watching from the shadows, Loria gasps in surprise, realizing with dread that the attacker is also a sorcerer. Sienna unleashes a powerful burst of red magical energy to block the incoming attack, creating a vibrant display of magical forces clashing. Sienna's eyes widen in shock as she notices the smirk on the face of the malicious cloaked sorcerer. Urgh! Sienna groans in pain as the sorcerer's attack breaks through, leaving him laughing mockingly at her defeat. Ha! Works pretty well, doesn't it? The sorcerer boasts as Sienna demands to know how he neutralized her magic, only to spot the glowing blue necklace in his hand. Sienna is horrified to recognize the sorcery nullification necklace, while the rogue sorcerer proudly boasts about stealing it from the Ministry of Magic. The rogue sorcerer maliciously wonders how Marquis Hasher will react when his only daughter is kidnapped, prompting Loria to resolve that she must step in. Sienna looks up in utter bewilderment as a cloaked figure suddenly stands in front of her to shield her. If Sienna gets kidnapped, what happens to my commission fee? Laria worries to herself as she stands bravely before the enemy. Sienna looks up at her savior with wide, sparkling eyes, softly whispering, "Lily? What's this now? You dare stand in my way?" The sorcerer barks angrily, promising to kill whoever has dared to interfere. The sorcerer summons a terrifying skeletal dragon made of blue lightning, but Loria watches it approach with complete composure. What? My sorcery? The sorcerer stammers in shock as his magic dissolves, demanding to know if Loria also has a nullification necklace. Loria calmly responds, "A necklace? Why would I need something like that?" Loria realizes that while her sorcery won't work on him due to his necklace, she cannot cast a massive spell to break it in this tight space anyway. Dark shadows fall over the bank's interior as Laria decides her best option is to buy time until the guards arrive. The sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the hall, causing one of the bank staff to cry out in surprise. A tall, formidable figure in a dark red uniform stands at the shattered doorway, his glowing yellow eyes burning with rage. What is that guy? The rogue sorcerer stammers, breaking out in a cold sweat as he senses the newcomer's overwhelming aura. The sorcerer tries to threaten him to stop, but the man lunges forward with blinding speed, knocking him unconscious instantly. The remaining robber falls backward in complete terror as his comrade is effortlessly defeated. The Grand Duke Classium? The hostages whisper in awe as Xenox stands victorious over the fallen sorcerer. Realizing they are completely outmatched, the remaining robbers panic and loudly order a full retreat. Sienna slowly approaches Loria, nervously beginning to speak. Sienna smiles warmly and blushes, saying, "Thank you for saving me," while Loria nervously stammers, well. Loria frantically tries to disguise her voice by pretending she has a bad cold, realizing she didn't take her voice-changing potion. Spotting Xenox approaching, Loria worries that if he recognizes her, Sienna will quickly find out her true identity. Xenox walks over to the two ladies, his tall and imposing figure commanding their full attention. Sienna introduces herself gracefully as Sienna Hasher, before introducing Loria as her companion and servant, asking Xenox what business he has with him. Xenox smiles slyly at Laria and replies, "He is also my employee." Sienna looks on in confusion, muttering a surprised, "Ah." Sienna turns back to Loria with a look of concern and calls out, "Lily." Sienna holds Loria's hand and warmly tells her that she will be waiting for her, asking her to make sure to get in touch. Loria looks extremely nervous under her hood as Sienna bids her farewell. Xenox orders his knights to take care of the rest of the scene before walking away with Laria. Laria quietly follows Xenox out of the bank as their footsteps echo through the empty corridor. Laria asks Xenox about Rodette, feeling deeply anxious. Xenox tells her that her guard knight is waiting in his carriage, prompting Loria to wonder if he is being held as a hostage, before Xenox commands her to get in. The heavy door of the grand carriage shuts firmly as they climb inside. Sitting inside the carriage, Loria looks around in surprise and realizes that Rodette is nowhere to be seen. When Loria asks where Rodette is, Xenox casually claims he must be in another carriage, earning him a shameless mental caption from her. Laria watches Xenox suspiciously, wondering what he is planning as he reaches into his pocket. Xenox pulls out an empty glass vial and asks, "Do you know what this is?" To which Laria honestly replies that it's a potion bottle she uses. Xenox explains that he found Shiro at the auction house and the kidnapper dropped that very bottle when they fled, making Laria realize she failed to retrieve it. Loria laughs nervously and asks if he thinks she is an accomplice to Shiro's kidnapper. Xenox muses that since the bottle is easy to obtain, he has considered several other possibilities instead. Leaning in close, Xenox reaches toward her hood as he whispers, "For example." Xenos gently pulls back her hood, touching her silver hair, and says, "That you are, Shiro, young lady," leaving Loria frozen in absolute shock. Loria grips her dress tightly, despairing that she has lied too many times to turn back now, and fears Xenox will be deeply disappointed in her if she tells the truth. Loria explains that there was a critical secondary reason she had to optimize her schedule and return home that day, prompting Xenox to ask what occurred to disrupt her plans. Loria recounts encountering an individual employing forbidden magic at the auction house, the very same spell placed on the Grand Duke's estate, and explains that exhausting her energy in the fight nearly cost her consciousness. Xenox wonders if passing out is a natural physical consequence of her actions, while Loria quietly notes to herself that his intense reaction is somewhat overwhelming. Xenox inquires if her physical state has fully recovered, prompting Loria to realize he was genuinely concerned for her welfare. She assures him that after a week, her efficiency is completely restored. When Xenox asks what kind of forbidden magic was used, Loria identifies it as mind control, leading Xenox to calculate the potential culprits behind this highly destabilizing threat to their security. As the carriage travels through the night, Xenox sits alone and questions her deceptions, calculating the costs and benefits of her choosing to hide the truth from him. Looking back on their interactions, Xenox realizes that a rigorous retrospective analysis reveals a massive accumulation of suspicious variables that he previously failed to calculate. Xenox recalls subtle behavioral clues that went unnoticed without careful observation, like her aversion to hot beverages or her habit of tilting her head, revealing a persistent underlying pattern of discomfort. He focuses his investigation on the white beast, recognizing that its behaviors were highly unconventional and suggested a deeper, hidden utility. He connects these precise details to Loria herself, realizing that her expressions and reactions perfectly mirror those of the white fox. Xenos questions his own analytical efficiency, wondering how he failed to synthesize these obvious clues and realize the truth much sooner. Ultimately, he calculates that her vibrant blue eyes have been providing the necessary empirical proof all along, confirming that she was Shiro from the very beginning. The carriage arrives back at the Grand Estate under the cover of night, preparing for a confrontation that will determine the administrative future of the household. Upon his arrival, the butler greets Xenox respectfully, preparing to deliver a message that will require immediate tactical decision-making. The butler informs Xenox that a guest is waiting for him, forcing Xenox to calculate whether this uninvited presence poses a threat to his estate's stability. Within the quiet halls of the castle, a piano melody begins to play, a calculated use of sound to draw Xenox toward a specific location. A gloved hand presses the piano keys with precision, creating a sequence of notes designed to signal their presence and influence the atmosphere. Xenox strides down the dark corridor, mentally calculating the potential risks and benefits of the confrontation awaiting him at the end of the hall. Xenox comes face to face with his uncle, Robenta Clasium, whose smug expression represents a competing set of interests that threaten the estate's overall welfare. Robina stands by the piano and notes with a cold smile that a significant amount of time has passed since they last negotiated their positions. Xenox immediately demands to know the purpose of his uncle's visit, seeking to evaluate whether this unexpected encounter yields any positive utility. The history of the Clasium family is recalled, reminding them of the chaotic conflict over succession that once threatened to destroy their collective security and resources. During that period of high instability, Robenta claimed the role of guardian to secure Xenox's succession, an action that successfully preserved the estate's administrative continuity. However, the initial friction began several months after Xenox departed for the capital, shifting the balance of administrative control back home. Robenta commands Xenox to return to the north, arguing that his presence is required to maximize the efficiency of their ancestral territory. Young Xenox remains silent, carefully evaluating the hidden costs and strategic motives behind his uncle's demand. Robenta observes that Xenox's recent actions deviate from his usual rational behavior, noting that his compromised focus is highly uncharacteristic. The uncle demands to know if Xenox's reduced productivity is caused by the white fox, Shiro, whom he perceives as a distracting variable that must be eliminated. Robenta declares that the beast has altered Xenox's behavioral patterns, drawing his blade in a calculated attempt to remove the perceived threat and restore order. Young Xenox panics as his uncle seizes Shiro, realizing that the immediate threat of violence will cause unnecessary harm to his companion. Shiro is violently thrown to the ground, crying out in pain as the physical cost of the conflict escalates. Lifting his weapon, Rubenta asserts that the wicked beast has bewitched Xenox, viewing its destruction as a necessary means to preserve the young lord's leadership. Desperate to prevent a useless tragedy, Xenox screams for his uncle to stop, attempting to intervene before irreversible damage is done. Xenox disarms his uncle and restrains his hand, demanding to know the rational justification for such a violent and destructive act. Xenox explains that since he entrusted Rubenta with the territory's administration, his immediate return was unnecessary, while Rubenta insists his extreme actions were calculated solely to maximize Xenox's long-term welfare. 3 years have passed since that critical event, and when Xenox asks if his uncle's calculations have changed, Rubenta confirms his position remains entirely identical. Xenox demands that his uncle cease sending white foxes to him, asserting that he only requires the utility of a single companion. Xenox reminds him of the past accusation that Shilo had bewitched him, using historical data to challenge his uncle's ongoing interference. Rubenta counters by revealing that a shaman recently diagnosed an unknown spell on the Grand Duke's residence, suggesting a hidden threat to their collective security. The uncle tries to dismiss the accusations, but Xenox presses forward, presenting additional evidence to expose the systemic threat his uncle represents. Xenox reveals he discovered that Rubenta sent spies to monitor him, concluding that these actions cannot be dismissed as coincidences when calculating the probability of a conspiracy. Xenox stares coldly at his uncle, demanding a rational explanation for these hostile maneuvers that threaten to destabilize the entire estate. Meanwhile, a black crow arrives at Laria's windowsill, acting as an efficient messenger to deliver critical intelligence with minimal delay. Loria retrieves the message, seeking to acquire new data that will allow her to optimize her strategy and minimize future risks. She opens the letter from Solike, hoping that the search has yielded actionable progress to help resolve the crisis. Looking out at the estate, Loria processes the silence, calculating her next move in this complex game of hidden identities. The letter reveals that Solike found nothing concrete, highlighting the difficulty of tracking a target who systematically minimizes their physical footprint to conceal their identity. However, the informant offers a vital hypothesis. Since forbidden magic demands a heavy price, the perpetrator at the auction was likely seeking a human sacrifice to fuel the spell, suggesting that investigating missing persons would yield the highest analytical value. Loria contemplates the grim reality of this exchange, noting that the ultimate price of forbidden magic is the destruction of a human body, representing a severe deficit in moral utility. She concludes that the immense suffering and loss of life required to fuel such magic is the precise reason society must classify and restrict these spells as forbidden. Loria deduces that the forbidden magic used at the auction likely relied on human blood. Realizing she cannot act on this immediately, she decides to focus on preparing the special items Solike requested. Tying back her silver hair, Loria prepares to work in her laboratory, though her thoughts inevitably drift back to Xenox. Loria recalls Xenox's shocking words declaring that she is Shiro, wondering what he truly meant. She notes that things have felt incredibly awkward between them ever since, but she resolves that she will have to meet and face him properly someday. Looking over her order list, Loria is utterly baffled by the sudden and overwhelming surge of requests for love potions. Her work is interrupted as a maid suddenly bursts into the room to deliver an urgent letter that has just arrived from the Imperial Palace. Loria is shocked to discover that the royal correspondence is an invitation to an upcoming Imperial Palace banquet. The maid explains that the Crown Prince personally sent the invitation. Loria sighs and admits she would rather avoid such social gatherings, suddenly realizing why there has been a massive rush of love potion orders. When the maid adds that the Grand Duke will also be attending and that it is highly recommended they arrive together, Loria realizes she cannot skip the event and must finally face Xenox to settle things once and for all. Delighted by her agreement, the enthusiastic maid clasps her hands together, noting that Loria will have a great deal of preparation to do. Loria asks what she needs to prepare for, prompting the excited maid to point out that she must get ready for the grand banquet itself. The maid casually adds that they are, in fact, already running a little late for the preparations. A nervous sweat breaks out on Loria's face as she processes the sudden rush and the looming reality of the imperial banquet.